What's going on, people?
Robbie O, good to see you again, buddy. Happy belated.
Happy belated. Oh, yeah, it was I turned 30 like a week ago.
Yes, celebrate. It's a milestone.
I appreciate it.
You made it.
Yeah,
good job.
Still alive, so that's all that counts.
Yeah, that counts for a lot in this day and age, unfortunately.
I know, unfortunately. But want to welcome a very special guest here today. Very, very close personal friend of mine, Mr. John Ziegler. He's, can I still call you a comedian? Are you still... Is that
I'm
right?
still a comedian.
Once a comedian, always a comedian.
Not a working comedian, but I'm a comedian.
Coronavirus is hurting his comedian game a little bit, but
they're doing a rally tomorrow.
Who's they?
They organized it. Yeah, like entertainment industry.
They actually formed like a rally.
Yeah,
like,
by a Tri-County flea market so they can book shows because the
Tri-County
rules are really. Do you guys curse on this podcast?
Of course.
Yeah, go ahead. I was making sure. The rules are really fucked up. Rule is you're not allowed to advertise or have ticket sales. Those are like the two main rules.
Wait, whose rules are those?
Cuomo's. There's only one guy with rules. Like it's all the rules of Cuomo. There's no other.
So say it again. You can't
advertise a show, and you can't have ticket sales.
So how do people even find out then? Like literally, they'd have to drive by and like find out. Like,
yeah, which they are doing.
Okay,
like social media or like
social media.
Okay,
or whatever, any kind of advertisement.
See,
like
it's a little entertainment in general.
It's a little. Well, it started with comedy and exotic dancing. Those were linked together. Like I have the State Liquor Association puts out a thing. It sends it to all the bars. They have like an email list.
Okay.
And it specifically says about music. There's certain types of music you can, which is funny in itself. Like you can have music, but certain types of music. It has to be dining music. And I'm like,
so
okay,
that makes no sense. Wet ass pussy doesn't count.
No, you can't have WAP. There's restrictions. So, but you can have dining music. I'm like, well, what the fuck tells me what I can dine to? Like, they don't want people getting up, dancing.
That's crazy.
So that's how it started. But it's specified in that email.
Okay.
All other forms of entertainment, such as exotic dancing and comedy, are strictly prohibited, regardless of phase. Then it escalated. That was like 3 weeks ago. So you were allowed to do certain outdoor things.
Okay.
Then they shut that down. They're like, any comedy where you're selling a ticket, where it's an event, shut down. They closed. Governors has they have 3 clubs. They have the indoors, and they built an outdoor club called the Patio.
Okay.
That was allowed to be. They had to fight for that.
To like have
the outdoors even be open.
That's at the Governors in Levittown?
The Governors in Levittown. They have what's called the Patio. The owner built it outside. He put like 60, 70 people in there. It's the best we have to work with. And they closed that now. After they reopened it, they closed it.
You know something? Comedy is not one of those things you can go on YouTube and just like do it without a live audience. It's just like we were saying with baseball.
No, you ever seen them? Like,
it's
my mother was watching. I came around watching. She's been watching America's Got Talent or some shit, and the guy's just standing there with like 3 cardboard cutouts trying to do stand up, and it doesn't hit at all.
America's Got Talent is like the worst thing for a comic. When you're doing like Radio City Music Hall and it's sold out, it's good because you just like walk out on. I have like 12 friends who have done that show.
Yeah,
like you walk out and the judges talk to you.
Right.
And they find out, and then they're like, "Okay, go ahead,"
and just do.
And then you just coldly like, "So I was at my brother's the other day," and it's like, "Oh, this is fucking uncomfortable. It's weird."
Yeah.
Right.
And then the people who kill are usually pretty shitty, to be honest. Like you got to have a backstory on that show.
Right. Well, I remember that guy that had like the short arms or some shit.
Yeah, that little arms help.
Funniest guy.
Polio.
They want to sell a good story.
They need a good backstory. I know you're talking about the guy with like his hands connect to his elbows.
Sure. He was funny.
It was actually he was pretty good.
Yeah.
You got to have
there's levels, and yeah, if you got that empathy card or whatever, you're a little cripple.
The kid who stutters made the finals.
Yeah, I remember him.
I met that kid too. He amps that stutter up a little bit for the show. Like he stutters.
But he plays it up. Well, does he play it up, or do they like edit it so that it seems like that?
I think a little. I have a friend. It's not that quiet. Acquaintance. Just Joe Matarese who did the show, and Joe's like a known comic. He was actually opening for Sebastian. I think he might have done. I don't know if he did the Garden, but he's a legit comic.
That if you're doing the Garden, that's amazing. So,
but Joe did America's Got Talent, and they edited his jokes. So it was like there was no punchline on his joke. Like they showed it and they cut to the audience with like no reaction. But I'm like, I don't even know which audience that is. It couldn't even been from his. Like they can do whatever they want.
Edited just for time's sake or content? Or
no, to make him look bad.
To intentionally make
He's making him look like he bombed, and he got so pissed because he's like, dude, I've been doing this. I know how to write a joke. Like, I have punchlines on my joke. You cut the punchline off. Of course it wasn't funny.
That's ridiculous. I mean, I get why they do it from a producer standpoint. They want to like have entertaining TV and ratings and advertisements, but I mean, you're fucking with somebody's life at that point. I mean, you could be doing this for over a decade, and then somebody just sees you on 30 seconds worth of TV, and I mean, they have an impression of you. I mean, that's ridiculous.
It's a really weird, because I know a lot of people made the top 10.
Okay.
It did nothing for them, didn't hurt them, didn't help them.
Okay.
Some people made the top 10 and changed their careers.
Okay.
It's like really weird.
It's
like
just a random.
Who resonates? There's a kid, Preacher Lawson, who I don't know, did really well. Tom Cotter, who's been around forever, came in second. And changed his career. Like, became like a guy who sells out. And
is the guy from here? Is he from Long Island?
Tom Cotter's he's a Boston guy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but he's been doing comedy like 30 years.
Right.
So you think it's more of like it's a platform and it's just really what you do with it? Or
I think so.
Okay.
But America's Got Talent, is that the place to go? Like, I mean, maybe that's not. They used to have Last Comic Standing. They used to have more. I don't know, Comedy Central. It felt like there was maybe 10 years ago a bigger platform for. I don't know.
Yeah, right now
YouTube
I think
and
it's
Netflix, but I feel like you got to be already established. I don't know.
I think it's actually Netflix doesn't really. I know a lot of people with Netflix specials.
No, right. They're handing them out like fucking, gift cards or something. I don't know, but
like late night doesn't help you. Doing like Colbert or Kimmel literally does nothing for you. That said, I've never done them.
But that used to be the height, like 20, people used to talk about going on the Tonight Show. That's when you made it.
Well, the Tonight Show changed your life.
Sure. But I mean, in general, the late night shows, like.
Doesn't do anything for you. It's a cool credit.
Right.
It's like something to pad your resume with.
I mean,
so what would you say, like, nowadays is, like, the biggest thing, like, venue for you to go for? It's probably just live audience shows or YouTube?
Social media following.
Okay. It's like.
It's really if you're funny or not, it's almost insignificant.
Right.
I hate to say that.
Because I feel like you've mentioned this, like some of the maybe Kevin Hart or I don't know.
No, those are real comedians. No. I'm talking about like some dude who started fucking something on Instagram like 3 months ago and now has 700,000 followers.
Yeah,
like that guy.
No, right, but I guess what I mean is like the Sebastian Maniscalco you brought. Like I don't think they're that funny, but I think their characters. You know what I mean? I don't think their material is that great, but they're likable. They're personal. They have a special quality or an act. A way that they talk. Sebastian Maniscalco like really plays it up with that talent. But I don't think that they're like. I think you have better. Like jokes, material, from what I've heard, but maybe it's just that that X factor that
I mean, I think Sebastian. He's not my cup of tea particularly, but I
shouldn't say not funny.
I've opened for him a lot, and he's like in front of a live audience. He's real good. He's really good.
He also did that, he did that shtick about if you pull up to somebody's house, you can't just knock on the door nowadays. You
that kind of went viral for him.
That's exactly. Yeah. Everybody has seen that. So it's like you have that one thing that's gone viral, so people are aware of you.
It's a weird dynamic now is what they do is they have like, people who are on your Twitter followers. You can get writing gigs.
Okay.
They'll ask you to submit packets for like Conan and things like that because they kind of monitoring your Twitter.
Okay.
But like Instagram, like in TikTok. If I was 11, I could be on TikTok.
Now, are you a social media guy? Do you have like an Instagram?
No.
Okay, you're like me. I hate it. I'd
have AOL dial-up service if I can still have it. Like I hate all this shit.
I detest it. So, and I'm 30, like I'm part of that generation, but I just never.
It's a necessary evil for what I do, and I should be. There's no excuse. I should be doing it.
Can you have someone do it? You know what I mean? Like, would you ever do that? Consider that?
I looked into a production company, but it's like I still need to do the content.
Right.
I met a marketing guy, and what he wanted me to do is be a Kevin Hart. He wants my phone in my face all day, being like, "Yo, it's John Ziegler. You're gonna see me I'm gonna be at the Stress Factory next week." And I'm like, I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't even come out as
because I have all my friends do it, and I find it obnoxious.
All right.
Right.
So.
And I'm like a purist. Like I really love stand up. There's people who want to be famous, and there's people who want to be stand ups. Like I want to be a stand up. Like, I'm like the guy who's an actor, and he's like, there's some people who are just in action movies, and you're like, well, he's not very good, but he's like a good-looking dude, and he's in action movies. And then there's people who are like, I'm not going to eat for 2 months because I'm playing an immigrant at the turn of this. I'm like, whoa, you're really into this. Like, that's me with comedy.
Okay.
Like, I take the craft really seriously.
Got it.
That doesn't put any asses in seats. Nobody gives a shit. Like, at the end of the day, I want to be really funny. I want to maximize my laughs. I want to be unique, original. I want comics to watch me and be like, kid's really fucking funny. Like, that's important to me. That said, I also want to make money. So the people right now who sell out of clubs are not the comics that I look at and I respect. Okay. Like, these are guys with Comedy Central specials, Netflix specials, late night spots, some small movie roles. They sell fucking 12 tickets. They don't sell. Then there's some guy who's like, you know, on fucking Instagram doing some ridiculous shit, and he's got 700,000 followers. And they'll sell out the club for the week.
Because everybody sees, you know, whatever he puts on freaking social
media. And I don't know what they're going to do when they get to the club, and I don't think it really matters. Like, who are those two guys? Because you'll know them because you're more of a conservative. The Hodge twins, you know them?
Oh, yeah.
Two like kind of jacked up black guys?
Yeah, the black guys. Yeah.
People
like
know more about
guys.
them than I do.
They did governors, and they had to add shows.
They do comedy? Or
no.
I'm surprised you don't know about them. Well, they're on with I think they're with Crowder a bunch. So
they're kind of in that realm like that.
We started talking about that. I'm probably the most conservative person you'll ever meet, and I kind of say that. But at the same token, I just don't like that. I don't know. I don't like the fringe or that, you know, like the guys that made themselves on Twitter. Like I like Shapiro, and we talked about Jordan Peterson a bit. Those guys are great because they're intelligent, they're knowledgeable. I don't know. Beyond that, I don't like the guys that just set up, I don't know, a stand outside of college or something like that and just try
looking to go viral for one moment.
Which is kind of what Crowder does.
Right.
Yeah. The prove me wrong thing's pretty funny. But
right. No. And I enjoy it to a certain extent. I watch it a little bit, but I do like, I don't know, I like the people that have a real, they're not just trying to make another side, I guess, look bad for lack of a better word, but, you know, Jordan Peterson is just he's so eloquent and so intelligent, and, you know, and he's essentially apolitical, but they try to make him political. They try to, you know, inherently what he believes in is just sort of at the core of what I believe are right-wing principles. You know, he talks a lot about the Gospels now, right, and the myths that you know, have kind of been passed down through mankind, and we've kind of forgotten about them. We can learn a lot from them. You know, you don't have to be a religious person, but there's, you know, going back to Cain and Abel, or, you know, Noah's Ark or whatever, you know, there's universality to those stories that is certainly I think lacking in today's world. Am I wrong, or, you know, I don't know. Is that you kind of disagree with that? But,
you know, something I disagree in certain aspects, but I respect that that's your opinion to have, and, you know, if that's how you believe, that's your right as an American. And I think a lot of the problems that we come in with today is that people can't accept that somebody disagrees with them. It's really that simple sometimes.
Did you watch any? Watching the DNC convention? Did you watch any of that? Yeah,
I didn't watch a minute of it.
I watched.
I'm not lying. I literally did not watch 1 minute.
Either.
I'm going to do the same thing with the RNC that I did with the DNC. I'm going to watch the keynote speakers because they're the keynote speakers. But honestly, I mean, you know what everyone's going to say, both sides. I mean, is anyone's opinion going to be changed off of this? I've
never cared about politics. I'm 52 years old. I've never given a shit for 51 years. I didn't care who won the presidency. I didn't care. I didn't know who my local senators were. I couldn't tell you who the attorney general of New York State was. I didn't even know.
You know, so God bless you. I mean, like,
and it
if
never
you could pull that off in this day and age,
but
God bless you.
But that's the way it should be, in a sense. I mean,
yes, where it's like it shouldn't be the focal point of every aspect of your life, but it feels like everything is just put in your face in a way where you can't get away from it.
Of course, we take it too personally. But you are saying you do care now. Like you feel like you're forced to care. Do you feel like
I feel like I'm forced to care for.
Is there one particular group or party that you would blame in general, or
no? It's not a party. I blame social media for the downfall of all civilization.
Yeah,
have I said that before?
Yes, that's literally a quote out of your mouth.
I loop porn in there too. I think that's a weirder topic. But I don't know. Well, what I'm getting at is
I thought the internet and social media was invented for porn. I didn't know that was I thought that was the purpose of it.
That was it taken off. You know, you could see the spikes.
Wait, say that again?
You could see the spikes in the internet taken off.
No, I know, but I don't think that's a good thing. I don't, you know, you ever watch Bill Maher at all?
I used to.
A little bit.
I haven't.
What do you think of him as a comedian? I feel like he gets shit on like a lot.
Well, he's very far left, and he's pompous, and he does with the hands. He's a little much, but he's very smart. He's very articulate.
Right. He's smart, and the reason I like him is because even though 90% of the time he might be bashing whatever, you know, he'll come back to you know, the center and make it, like, you know, last week he made a great, you know, speech about, you know, essentially what's wrong with the Democratic Party and just tearing down the statues and the whole, you know, white fragility and white people are inherently racist. And, you know, he you know, that's just common sense. Like he you know, he's far left in his policy.
But he's reasonable.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what's just so lacking. That's why I would never, I know what the DNC is going to say. I know they hate me now. They're going to tell me I'm a terrible person, you know, so
that's exactly what I was just saying.
I know they have nothing to offer me. So why would I watch them? You know,
that's exactly the point I was just trying to make. Like where I said, I'll watch the keynote speakers because it's a remarkable event. It happens every 4 years. I feel like it's something that you should pay attention to. But all the other people on the undercard, it's like you know what they're gonna say. I mean,
the undercard.
That's really what they are.
There's a reason the undercard's free. On TNT, and you don't have to get it on pay-per-view. There's a reason.
That's really what they are. You have your opener to kind of get the crowd juiced, and then you have the middle card of everybody that's supposed to build up the main event.
I love that they gave AOC a minute.
Yeah, I heard 90 seconds or something like that.
Give her a cameo. Give her a minute.
You know something? I'm in the Democratic field where I was like, absolutely. I listened to Kasich. He's one person that I made it a point to wait. You know something? He's one person I made it a point to see, but they gave him, a certain amount of time. She got 1 minute. I was like, well, something. He's trying to sell a message here. So,
well, she freaking endorsed Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, I don't think she endorsed Biden at all.
Bernard Sanders.
Well,
no.
My social media viewpoint is it's given a platform to everybody.
Right.
There's a lot of stupid people in this country. A lot, like a majority.
In this world, they're all
very
connected now.
Uneducated, very stupid, who don't really need a platform. Like, look, here's I set guidelines for who should have an opinion. If you are 35 or above and you can't get approved for a Kohl's charge card, I don't fucking care about what you think about anything. You made horrible life decisions. You're not bright. You're living in your mother's basement. You're 40. You can't get a Kohl's charge card. You don't know how to fix universal health care.
Exactly.
You don't understand what socialism is.
Amen.
You don't know. Like, you're a dum-dum.
I've said it before where it's like you see some people preaching and you'll see them spelling words wrong or they'll use the wrong version of there. And it's like, I can't take your point seriously.
No, you're allowed
anymore.
to have a vote.
Yes,
I'm not saying you don't get basic rights.
Yes.
But I don't need you on Facebook lecturing to me about what this one's doing wrong or foreign policy. I'm like, you don't even know. If I gave you a map, you couldn't point where half the states in the United States are. You don't understand foreign policy. I don't understand it. But I know what I don't know.
You're aware
you know
of
enough
that.
to, and that just seems to be forgotten.
Those people, but you've given a platform, all these people. Like, our country has a hierarchy. There's supposed to be a hierarchy. Hard-working, smarter people rise up in a hierarchy. Do you want this, as Jordan Peterson would say, do you want the stupid, lazy people running stuff?
No.
Yeah, you want the smarter hierarchy. And then you have the left who kind of keeps an eye on those people to make sure they don't become power mongers and become tyrannical.
Right,
you need a balance.
They're essential. That's what they used to do, and what they used to represent the working class. They used to, the
union class. Well, I think that's the message that he's been trying to sell. I mean,
who's this?
Biden.
Biden.
I mean, I think he's been trying to sell to the union man.
I mean, he's too old. I mean, like, I don't even want to shit on him because I think he has actual dementia, but. I don't understand how someone could reasonably vote for him unless you just believe.
Because they hate Donald Trump. The same reason nobody voted for Hillary, because they hate Hillary Clinton. Exactly. Donald Trump didn't win because he was the most articulate.
Well, no.
They hated Hillary Clinton.
And you know something, to this day and age, I bet you if you put Bill Clinton on the ticket, he could probably still win a presidential, but Hillary Clinton is just not a likable person.
Well, I liked Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was a good president.
That's what I'm saying. Like, Bill Clinton
he spent 2 years on a fuck island, and that guy will still win the presidential nomination.
Meanwhile, Hillary was probably like as prepared as any human being could be, and people are like, I just don't like her.
Do you actually believe that he was on that island and on a plane? And
well, he was. I mean, it's not really an opinion. I don't know what he did, but
there's discrepancy of whether he was actually on the island. He was on the planes.
The discrepancy was if he there 24 times or 28 times is the discrepancy. He was clearly there.
Exactly.
They're not off by a number. I mean, there's like 30 instances of him being, that island's not Staten Island. I mean, you got to get on a plane and fly there. Like, it's, where is that island?
It's in the Caribbean somewhere. Like, they have to know that you're coming. You don't just be like, oh, shit, I made a wrong turn, guys.
It's the Bat Cave. You know what? They know you're
exactly.
there.
Where is that actual island? Is it in the Caribbean?
I think it is. Can we Google that and find out where his island is? I mean, I bet you it's probably got to be the Caribbean. It's got to be somewhere where they could just, like, set off from New York and be there in an hour or two.
Man, that Epstein guy. He knew Trump, too, right? I think they were...
Yeah, I feel like that
knew
whole
everybody.
Circle.
Would anybody be surprised if Trump was there?
No. I mean, Prince Charles, Trump,
I don't care about...
Yeah.
I feel like if he was, they would have been able to put him there already. I feel, I
don't think he'd even deny it, though. That's his... Trump has this unique personality trait that I wish I had more of, because being in entertainment's like tough. You have to have thick skin.
Yeah, that's true.
People just want to trash you for no reason. Sure. They want to just take you out. And I'm a pretty safe comic. You've never seen my act, but I'm not edgy. I don't talk about politics at all.
Do you still get people like coming at you on social media?
Very. I'm not really on social media.
Okay.
And two, at the clubs, I'm likable on stage. I'm not really pushing any, but I've had complaints.
You deal with hecklers? Like, how do you deal with a heckler in that situation?
It's not as many as people think, and there's different types of hecklers.
Okay.
So sometimes it's the guy, and I can see when they walk in. Before the show started, I go, "Oh, that guy's gonna be a dick." It's the way he holds his beer. It's the way he walks. He's got the swagger, and I'm like, he's just that guy. I know he's gonna be. He's really hungry for attention.
Okay, that's I
he
feel like
needs
that's a good
attention.
Way. He's looking to start something
so
with you.
I'll ignore him.
All right,
which eats him up. And there's people I call them. They peacock. The guy who comes in with the crazy Hawaiian shirt and the goofy hat. I'm like, fucking hungry, and they want to sit up front.
Okay.
I'm like, you want me to mention the shirt, and there's nothing worse than when you're wearing the stupid shirt. And I won't even address it. Like, you're dying for me to mention your shirt. And the fact that I won't is killing them. But some people have shame. They have self-awareness.
Okay.
So if you point out that they're being a dick and they're upsetting the rest of the crowd, they're killing their good time, they get embarrassed and they shut down.
Okay.
Drunks don't have any self-awareness.
No inhibition.
They don't. You can embarrass them, call them names. The audience can be telling them shut the fuck up, and they just don't care. Like, when you're dealing with a drunk, you're not gonna win.
Okay. Yeah.
There's nothing rational you're gonna say. It's very much like the far left. Like, you're not going to convince them.
Yeah.
That was my political. Look at that.
It's all right.
That was my political joke. So when you see a drunk, then I gesture for the bouncer.
Okay.
Let the club handle it.
Worse, girls or guys like drunk?
Oh, girls.
You're girls, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll get in trouble for saying it. Ask a gaggle of girls, a bachelorette party. As soon as you see dick straws and dick hats, like a bachelor, I'm like, oh, they're not going to shut the fuck all night.
Here we go.
It's about me. It's Maria's day. I don't want to say, I guess that's a great Greg Giraldo bit. And the girl's name is Maria in the joke. He talks about after 9/11, he knew we were going to be okay. Because these girls all came out in the limos and they were like, "It's your day, Maria. You're not going to wreck." And he's like, if you couldn't take, he calls him a gaggle of twats. He goes, "If you can't take this gaggle of twats down,
then we're going to be okay. Yeah. We're going to make it."
And his great, he goes, "I don't care what those Mexicans did." It's just a great line. It's a great, Google's great Greg Giraldo bit.
That's funny.
But girls night out.
Yeah.
Oof.
They don't give a shit.
They don't give a shit.
And they give it right back to you, too. They'll fucking go toe-to-toe with you.
Nah, you're not gonna. They're like drunk. They don't need to be drunk to be like drunk.
Wait, but you said you've had a few complaints, and you are very clean. Like, what are those? What were those?
I had a complaint because after, I'll get the school wrong. Maybe it was Sandy Hook, a school in Connecticut. Bunch of kids got shot up.
Yeah, yeah.
I taught kindergarten 20 years ago. I have jokes about when I taught kindergarten. Nothing. It's about a kid who's shitting his pants, or the mother thinking his kid's a genius, but the kid shits in
Okay. Yeah.
And of course,
and
somebody
someone made a connection. Just like,
no, people, like, ladies came to me upset after the show and they're like, you
just can't talk.
You shouldn't talk about that. And I go, talk about what? And they're like, the kindergarten bits. I go, well, which one? Like, I'm trying to think. I go, he shits in his pants. The kid had chapped lips. I go, like any of it. I go, so I can't even address like that kindergarten is a thing in the universe.
Yeah,
because kids, it's stupid. People personalize their offense. Like, I do a joke.
Yes.
I take care of my mom.
Okay.
My mom was Alzheimer. I do a joke about taking care of her feet. I bought this like roller. It's like a little belt sander.
Okay.
And I do her feet. And I go, there's a lot of dust. I go, there's like crazy dust. And I go, I cover my mouth with a napkin when I do it.
You wear a mask.
Yeah, I wear a mask basically. And then I do it's like a little bit of an actor where I look and I'm like, can I get mesothelioma? I'm like, how do you get mesothelioma? A lady was there with her husband who had mesothelioma, who was so offended. She wanted to send me literature on mesothelioma. I'm like, yeah, I know what it is. Like, so if I pick another disease, you're cool with it?
Right.
Like, I'm sorry about your husband, but I'm not making fun of mesothelioma. I'm saying I'm breathing in a lot of dust from my mom's feet.
It's a joke, and people can't take that context.
Yeah, but it's very, I'm like, there's 200 people here. 199 gave me an applause break. I'm sorry about your husband.
Right.
And I have a joke that's not a rape joke. I don't do rape jokes.
Okay.
The joke was, I used to work in sales. Sales is very hard because you got to be super aggressive. I'm not aggressive by nature. They used to bring in a sales manager, and they give us pep talks. Like, just remember, team, 5 no's make a yes. And I'm like, I think that's a rape. I'm pretty sure that's the joke. And people were like, rape's never funny. I go, yeah, I agree. I don't remember making a joke about rape.
Right.
Like, I literally, that's a joke, and people just jump right to rape.
They hear a word. It's like a trigger word.
I get that, but it's like,
I'm not Anthony.
We know the difference.
I'm not Anthony Jeselnik. I'm not making dark jokes that are clearly dark jokes.
Yeah, that's his whole shtick.
That's his whole shtick, and he's damn good at it.
But I guess it's just from like my point of view. If I'm going to a comedy show, I understand that everything is going to be comedy. Somehow... I mean, it's going to be some things that you might be offended by.
And if you are offended,
like, you're going to a comedy show, like.
But if you are offended, my response to you is end. Like, I don't give a shit. That
Right.
What does your offense have to do? Go be offended.
Right.
You don't have a right to not be offended.
Yeah, like you're not going to like
keep it to yourself. But in some ways, I think being like an Anthony Jeselnik or like a Trump is in some ways better because at least people understand.
Well,
you know
Trump
what I mean?
will never apologize. He'll take the offense. Like, he's a bully.
yeah.
This guy's a bully.
I mean, yeah, in a sense. But again,
No, not in a sense, man. That guy is a seventh grade
defensive-
schoolyard bully. He will
he's from
take your
Queens.
milk money.
We're both from Queens.
Yeah, he's a Queens.
know?
He's a real estate mogul Queens
He
guy.
grew up not too far from where
He
I
got
grew
accused
up.
of sexual harassment, and his reaction to it was, "She's a 4. I would never harass a 4."
Dude, some of the
And
shit.
it was
Just go on
and it
the
was
offense.
over.
The first debate with Megyn Kelly talking about bleeding out of like her every orifice.
It was like the first question I think it was. Yeah.
I
The
wish I
Rosie
had more.
O'Donnell shit.
I wish I had more of that.
I know. He's a comic genius.
Like, how do you just
Unintended. That's just off the rip. He
talk
just
about best defense is a good offense. He just
Exactly.
hammered, and they were like, "All right, I guess that's over with."
exactly.
The debate.
That's what happens. Especially that's what I'm saying. In a way, it's sort of better because in a week they move on. You know, if
Yeah.
you apologize, you know, it might never. Look at Kevin Hart. What was the gay?
Yeah, stop
comments?
apologizing.
That
Everybody's apologizing.
that's essentially all I'm saying.
I don't know if it's like they have too much at stake with their corporate media contracts, so they don't want to get cut out of
exactly
that.
what it is.
I mean, I think that's a
Jimmy
good amount of
Fallon
time.
just
I mean,
did a public apology.
Right.
It was 20 years ago on Saturday Night Live. He dressed up like Chris Rock, which is obviously black.
Right.
It's not blackface. It's black makeup. I don't want to use the word blackface because anybody knows the history of blackface. That's not blackface. Just dressing up in costume as somebody is not blackface. Blackface was a thing
yeah.
where they.
You mean
they
like
took,
what? Like Jimmy Kimmel did the same thing, where he's like Karl
Jimmy
Malone
Kimmel
or
did
some
this.
shit.
Carl Malone. I'm
you
talking about
saying-
Jimmy Fallon.
No, right. But wait, are you saying that's blackface?
No, it's not blackface.
Oh, okay. Like,
And people who argue
it's about
that
the intent is what you mean?
there's no intent. Blackface was at the 1920s minstrel shows. They
Right,
took
right.
roles from black
Birth of
people.
a Nation type deal.
Yeah, it was Al Jolson. He was the biggest entertainer in the country in 1927.
Yeah.
He was the jazz singer. He did everything in blackface. But one, it kind of perpetuated black stereotypes. I mean, they talk like, mammy and shit like that.
Yeah, they had to do like they had to
And
act
they also took
crazy
the roles. Like, black
grotesque.
people weren't given black roles. They were given to white people who just put on blackface.
Right.
Dressing up as somebody that you're impersonating,
Right.
there's no intent. It's not a disrespect. If you want to do an impersonation, like, you ever seen anybody impersonate Jack Nicholson? Anybody who does Jack Nicholson. What do? You put on Ray-Ban sunglasses and pull your hair back and go, where did they get a load of me? You do the shitty Nicholson impersonation because you want to look like him.
Right.
That's
right.
what an impression is. So he did Chris Rock. He's friends with Chris Rock. He crushed the impression. It was 20 years ago.
And he should apologize now.
And now somebody, like, you don't have to dig this up. It's
Like,
Saturday Night Live. It's not like you had to
people
go
know
into the
about it.
archives. I can think of, off the top of my head, at least 5 scenarios where somebody was dressed as a black person on Saturday Night Live.
Sure.
And nobody gives a shit.
all the time.
Billy Crystal, for 2 full seasons, was Sammy Davis Jr. Not one sketch. 2 full seasons. Nobody gives a shit.
I remember seeing Jimmy Kimmel doing what Karl Malone say on the Man Show, like back when it was actually on Comedy Central when I was in middle school. I mean,
20 years ago.
basically,
The reason they're
when you
giving it
say
to
like
Jimmy
that,
Kimmel
well,
is he's
Well, he's
he's kind of
dick.
one of these virtual signaling
Yeah.
guys who's coming after everybody.
Right.
So I'm like, how you
Yeah.
like it now?
Right,
exactly. That's a good way of putting it.
Kimmel came out, fucking might as well gone on tour, an apology tour.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, I'm really sorry if I, but you're not sorry.
It's your corporate media people told you
And there's
that you
nothing
have to
worse than
apologize.
watching somebody who's powerful. Like, draw a line in the sand
Yeah.
because these companies cower so quickly. Soon as somebody goes, I'm offended, it's like, I'm like, dude, that's what it took one person to write a fucking
Right.
blog and you
Right.
changed your corporate policy? Like, are you kidding?
Yeah.
Do you see that before they did it with Gone with the Wind, now they just did it with Blazing Saddles.
Where they're
Oh yeah,
taking it off,
that's always
like,
they've been talking about that for years. Fucking getting rid of that
Before it, they have to have like a
trigger warning.
trigger warning.
Yeah.
I thought the trigger warning was going to be like a line that says this may contain racially sensitive material. I'm like,
Yeah, I
whatever,
thought
who
that
gives a-
was the trigger warning. I thought
No,
they
it's like
already
a 3-minute speech from some lady who's a professor out in Berkeley. It's like a 3-minute video.
You know, something. All it needs to be is like a literal, like just like they have the R rating or PG-13.
Yeah, I thought
that
we
comes
already
up
had
before
it.
screen.
Right,
Like,
that's what I'm saying.
you
I
would
thought we
think
already had
that,
the
like, it would
MA
be-
mature audience.
But here's
I
an
thought-
example. And you've seen Blazing Saddles?
Yeah, of course.
Blazing
Who hasn't?
Saddles is a parody that makes fun of racism.
Exactly.
It's showing how ignorant these people are. It's not support of. It's just like saying the producers, they sing "Springtime for Hitler" in Germany.
Yeah.
And it's
Right.
Hitler
Like-
parody. Like you're making fun of Hitler.
Right, and made by a Jewish guy. And
Well, I'm
you're
Jewish. I'm
you're
thinking
Jewish,
just
he's Jewish too.
I mean, I may start a protest and Start screaming as a Jew, like I'm offended by
every. Who was it? Dave Chappelle when he did, I think, his last Netflix stand.
No, the most recent one was the George Floyd one. It was the one before that, I think.
But doesn't he talk about
George Floyd
that?
wasn't a stand-up special. That was like a YouTube. It was called like 8 minutes 46 seconds. Yeah, it was more of a public service.
I didn't see that. No, but he. Do you know the special I'm talking about? The one before. Like, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the Asian woman got offended. Was that?
No. Oh. He brings up. He actually says that like essentially black people have the biggest claim to. Being offended, and Jews are kind of like second. Like there's no comparison.
There's a pecking order.
Yeah, that he actually said that in the middle of the show. That's an incredible statement to make, especially on a Netflix special. But
I'll tell you what that statement comes from. And again, this is a Ben Shapiro thing, but when I heard it, I go, huh. There's equality of opportunity. Who has opportunity, like what's happened to them, what kind of oppression have people felt, and then there's equality of outcome.
Totally, right. That's communism.
So the problem is Jews, for the most part, are above average education, way above average salary.
Right.
They're not right now. They're not a struggling people.
Right.
So it's hard to play the victim role when you're successful and educated.
Yeah.
If you're a minority who's financially destitute, and you're in jail and blah blah blah, so you rank higher on the social scale of victimhood based on equality of outcome.
Okay, that's actually that's a good mindset to have.
It's easy to scream if you're poor and everybody knows in jail. You're like, look at my fucking life. But if you're like, well, we had a Holocaust and they murdered 8 million of us, and people go, yeah, but you make a pretty good living.
Yeah, but that was 80 years ago, and they try to rationalize it like that. Yeah. Okay.
No, but
why do I owe you any sympathy? Because you're doing so well now. So
this is how ignorant I am. Because I'm Jewish, but I've never been to a temple. I wasn't bar mitzvah. I know nothing about being Jewish.
Okay,
nothing. I lost my point, but
you're not very Jewish.
I just realized I was Jewish. That's why I froze up. I'm like, wow, I'm Jewish. I never realized how small of a percentage of the United States. It's like 2%.
Yeah.
Is it even that high? I think there's only 14 million Jews in the world.
If you get rid of New York, it's like a fraction of a percent.
You know what's funny? Actually, I was just in Israel when they were dissolving the Knesset the last time around in December, and a point of view came up during one of our group discussions where black people represent 13% of the American population, and just like you said, Jews represent 2% of the population. It's like, why does one group get their point of views represented more in Congress, and why is it out there more? And they brought up simply it's voter turnout. I mean, you look at the Jewish population, even if it's 2%, you have voter turnout of upwards of 95% consistently across the board, no matter what.
Well, again, I think they're being smart. Culturally, they usually look at Hollywood. They moved before during the World War II. A lot of them came over here, and they were filmmakers in Germany, in Berlin.
They used to refer to it as Jewish dogma in Hollywood.
And then they came over here, and they sort of took up the industry. And it's just being smart, right? I mean, culturally, you stick to people who think alike, and it's a safer, more intelligent way of going about things. I mean,
it's the weird thing in comedy now. Is you have to be very homogenized. You can't offend anybody.
Right.
And I can't imagine how you put together
if I point out, it's observational. So I have friends from all different walks of life, economically, religiously, culturally, race. You point out the differences. There are differences.
Of course.
I have friends who are Dominican who live in Dominican neighborhoods. You're going to tell me my family, Jews from Long Island, are the same as growing up in
you've had the same experiences,
Washington
the
Heights,
same culture,
and a Dominican family. Like, what are you, crazy?
Yeah. Right.
So if I make an observation as a white guy, also it's like a racist observation.
Of course.
But then they want you to celebrate diversity. I'm like, well, which is it? Are we all the same, or are we diverse?
Right.
Like, I don't know which side I'm supposed to be here.
Right.
There's a reason there's a Chinatown, a Korean town, a Polish neighborhood, Brooklyn Heights with the Orthodox Jews, like.
Sure.
People live where you're familiar.
Right. It doesn't take a scientist to figure it out,
Ghettos form.
Right.
Yeah.
People with the same cultural history and back,
I wouldn't want to live in Chinatown.
Especially not
Who am I going to the diner with? I got nothing to talk about.
Right,
right.
I'll go for Chinese food. Food. You like to take bits and pieces, like Italian food. That's
as far as like bits and pieces. I'm like takeout. I'm just getting my chicken and broccoli and going home.
I'm getting my cultural fix and I'm leaving. Yeah. So when you put together like a comedy routine, like you actually have to keep that in mind.
I don't.
You don't. Okay.
No,
you just say I'm going to do what I'm going to do.
It's not what I it's not what I write. I write very observational, personal experiences.
Sure.
I've written some jokes that I'm like, it's not going to fly.
Okay.
And it's not worth, there's a risk reward. I go, I can do this joke and try to prove a point.
Right.
Because I think it's funny, but it's probably going to alienate half the audience. It's just not fucking worth it. It's a short joke, even though I think it's funny.
You're just
Here's a joke I'll do at an open mic that I don't care about doing here. My career's over anyway. What's it going to do to me? But it's not a bad joke. I don't like that everybody cowers to the political. People come out and go, I'm offended. And some of it's so ridiculous. You're like, that's a fucking leap. So in the real estate community, they no longer want you to use the terminology master bedroom.
Yeah.
So what are you supposed to say?
Primary bedroom.
And
I'm like, who came up with that leap? Because master, black, slave, it has nothing to do with that. I Googled what master bedroom comes from. It came from the master of the house primarily was a man.
Sure.
Because at that time, yes, it was 100 years ago when the term came around, so it was primarily, and it didn't even say, it said almost exclusively a man, not every time. That's it. Nothing to do with slavery. But now you're getting to the point where you're like, well, master's a word.
It's something that we've always called it, but
yeah. I take martial arts. We call the head instructor, he's a master.
Yeah.
Like, that's a term. Now I gotta call him something different.
Right.
So my joke was, it's no longer master bedroom. You gotta call it the primary bedroom. And the people are like, where's the primary bedroom? I'm like, it's down the hall. It's just past the slave quarters. Like, you can't miss it. Like, that's not an offensive. Anybody gets offended by that? I'm like, I don't give a fuck. Obviously, I'm making fun of the fact that that's the man. You know, if I have to explain it, we have bigger issues.
Wait, so you would or you wouldn't do that joke?
I won't do it because it's a throwaway joke. And I'm like, is it worth it?
Okay.
No, if I'm Jim Norton or I'm Bill Burr, if I want to do it, I'll do it. Who, you going to cancel me?
Yo, Bill Burr's.
I make money for you. John Ziegler's easily cancelable. They don't need me. If a club gets negative comment cards, they go, yeah, I'm just not going to book you. I don't make. You're a good comic, but you don't make us money.
Right.
And you're just asking for trouble when you throw in something like that.
So then how do you get to that next level then? If
you do the comedy you can, and as you start to sell tickets, it frees you up to be able. Like, people look at Jim. I have young comics. I ran the brokerage open mic for almost 7 years. So the brokerage is like a new talent night. And you bring people, you get to do shows. So it's guys who are brand new at comedy. And those people come in, and they all have their idols. I want to be Nick DiPaolo, who's a very right. He's almost an alt. Nick isn't. He's pretty alt-right. And I want to be Jim Norton, who's filthy. I want to be Louis C.K. And I go, yeah, but Jim Norton wasn't always Jim Norton. Nick DiPaolo wasn't always Nick DiPaolo. Like, they did this for years and built an act and built a following. When you get your core audience, nobody goes to see Andrew Dice Clay and then walks out and go, man, that guy's really dirty, and he's very chauvinistic towards women. I'm like, you knew what you bought a ticket for, right?
Yeah. But I feel like that would be the case with anybody that's buying a ticket to a comedy show, that they would have to have some type of awareness that there may be a joke here that is offending me. You would think, but I guess.
But if you buy Governors on a Saturday and I'm the headliner, they probably sent out free tickets. And you're like, let's go to a comedy show.
Okay.
This guy has some credits, and I've seen him before, maybe a little bit here and there. So they go. But if I start being offensive, they didn't come to see that.
Yeah.
If you go to see Anthony Jeselnik, you bought a ticket for Anthony Jeselnik.
Right.
So you'll give him leeway.
Look, if I like dining music, as Cuomo would call it, and then I go, oh, there's this band coming around. I heard they're very good. They're called, they're called Anthrax, and you fucking go, and you're like, what is this? You know what I mean? Like, I was expecting. If you buy a ticket for Metallica, you know what you're buying a ticket for.
Yeah.
When it gets loud, you're not going to be like, ooh.
Right,
so
right.
It's the same thing with comedy.
Yeah, I think people want to go. They want to laugh, but everything's just so hypersensitive. Like, you can't make everything.
And there's always an overcorrection.
Right. Yeah. And to that other point you made about the master bedroom, I think at one point there's like who was it in the NBA? They wanted to get rid of the word owner because the word owner, I think it was Draymond Green specifically. There's the connotation that again they're drawing any connection.
And the other thing, 85% of the league is black.
Yeah.
But you can't be offended by the word owner. What we undo the English language because it was made by white people. It's such a slippery slope.
They changed it for the disabled list in baseball.
I'm telling you, there's people that would change the name of America.
What did they change it?
The disabled list in baseball, they changed it over just to the injury list. So now it's no longer the DL, it's the IL.
I think that was a different reason, though.
It was because it was like disabled veterans, which people understand that and they agree with it. So
was it even that?
I think that's what the argument was.
I thought it was just like because people were getting around it, saying they were disabled. I don't know.
When you pander to the transgender community, which is a very small percentage of the American public.
Yeah.
I'm 52. I know two dudes who wear dresses. I'm 52.
That's two more.
It's not a lot of people, though, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're doing at night. They can go in their room and dance the can-can. But in public, I know two people that are transgender. I can give a shit. But when you have to start, like the Long Island Railroad used to say, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. They changed that.
Yeah.
Some people are like, well, I don't identify as a lady or a gentleman. Now it just says, welcome, train passengers. I go, you changed all those recordings and actually took this. Like, we don't have ladies and gentlemen anymore. The way we've been our social values for the past 200 years, there's no more ladies. You can't be a lady. You can't be a gentleman.
Well, how many gender types are there now
What is this,
in New
like
York
87 genders or something like that in New York? I think
There's 2.
Well, we know there's 2, but
And I'm not saying this offense because I have a friend.
but
who
would you
I
even say
respect.
transgender is a third gender? I mean, no one in their
No.
right mind. Like, you're just a
somebody who
dude
likes
wearing
to
a dress. Like, or
And I don't want to be.
Of course,
I don't even want to be
again,
disrespectful
sure,
to say it that
of
way because
course,
I
of
have a
course.
friend who.
But I'm never calling Bruce Jenner Caitlyn Jenner, nor am I calling him a woman. I'm not. Like,
I call my friend by their chosen the name they want to be called.
and
By. It's a respect
again,
issue.
well,
I don't
right,
care.
but you know them personally. Maybe that's
Not
different.
well.
No, all right. But even I've never met Bruce. You know, it's just like if someone I don't know at all. Like, there's, you know, you're asking me now to shift my values just because your personal needs.
Well,
need to
that's
be
what
met.
happens is when like. I'll shift out of respect to you, but if you want me to start sharing
Right.
certain belief systems, like, well, I don't
Right.
agree with you, and you're not going to force me, you're not going to bully me into believing this. I don't believe it.
But they're trying to, and that's what again. I think that's what you know. I hate to make things political, but that's the message of the Democratic
Well, when they try
Party,
to, when
man.
you
I mean,
legislate things, it becomes political.
right,
When you
and
start
that's how Jordan
legislating
Peterson
language,
came on the
that's his
scene.
claim to fame.
You know, was the whole transgender. You know,
But then you get called transphobic. He's like, I'm not.
I don't even know what that
trans-
means. I don't even care about that.
He's like, I'm not
you know?
transphobic. I don't give a shit what you do.
Yeah.
But stop telling me I have to call people by the certain name. He goes, it's a made-up language. The language doesn't exist. You can't mandate me. He goes, I'll do it out of respect.
In the United States, you can't mandate that someone has to think of a certain way. I mean, as fucked up as a belief as someone could have, I mean, you can't tell them how they should think. I mean, it's just
Well, that's
how it
my
is.
thing going on with this thing about racism. I've never thought of myself as a racist. Doesn't mean I don't have some racist tendency. I mean, I'm not living in a bubble. You know, they call unconscious bias. Like, I'm a white guy. I grew up on white Long Island. I knew 2 black guys my entire life until I was an adult. So do I have prejudices? Yeah, anybody tells me they're not prejudiced in some way, I don't believe them. I think they're lying.
That's definitely not
My friend
true.
used to have
I
a
mean,
joke when he goes to a 7-Eleven. He goes, if a big jacked up white guy walks in, you know, Rob's muscular, Rob walks in, he's like, that guy must be dedicated, probably works out every day. He goes, when a big black guy walks in, he's always like, oh, what do you want to wait for? Like, it's a different, like...
You come to an immediate
like,
bias.
Right.
Louis C.K. has a great bit about that his prejudice is subtle. Because if he walks into a pizzeria and there's 4 black ladies who own it and are making pizzas, he walks in, he just goes, huh.
I wasn't expecting that.
And he goes, maybe I'll get pizza. Should I get pizza here?
Right,
It's like,
right. Is it going to be any good?
Should I leave and go to a...
What's going? Are you robbing it? Like,
But
what's
it's such
going
a
on?
subtle bit the way he does it
Yeah.
that he just walks in, and that's a form of prejudice because you have a preconceived
You're right about
notion.
that. Exactly.
If you have a television set or you've watched movies, you're going to have, or you have parents like mine, and I grew up in the 70s, and I knew 74 Archie Bunkers. All my family friends were kind of like, you know what the problem is? Like, they were all that kind of the way it was. You can't help but have it. But I've never considered myself to be racist.
Right.
But if somebody is racist, if somebody comes out right out and says it, they're not even trying to be discreet. They go, yeah, I don't like African Americans. I go, okay.
Like, you're
Like,
not.
I can't man. You
Right,
don't have to.
right.
You're allowed to dislike people.
Of course.
Well, that's exactly it.
As
Like,
long as you don't discriminate or commit a hate crime
Right.
or do something. But this thing about they're hateful can't, like, well, they're allowed to believe what they want to believe. You can not believe in homosexuality. I do. I don't really give a shit what anybody does. It doesn't offend me. I don't care about it. I can care less. But there are people who, for religious viewpoints or their own, whatever their issues are, they're animate against it. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to tell them, no, you have to, you can't believe that. I think it's a little bit of a weird viewpoint, but I go, whatever, it's your thing. As long as you're not discriminating against somebody.
Well, and I think that's the crux of it. But today they're trying to mandate thought. I mean, that's
Well, that's
pretty
kind of what
clear.
it feels like. They're like, you're
No,
homophobic.
that's not just what it feels like. That's what it is. I mean, they are, right? I mean, there's obviously certain things you can't say, and you know, I mean, look at what's going on. Social media again. It's such a clear concerted attack against whatever you want to say, conservatives, Republicans, anyone that doesn't hold that the viewpoint of the left. I mean, trying to go after Trump's tweets and say, you know, fact checking the president of the United fucking States of America.
Stop tweeting on the toilet at 2 a.m. It's a bad idea. You're
Right.
the president.
But
Like,
it's a bad look.
when did that shit start? When did the president start doing that shit? Like
Sure.
Trump.
yeah.
You never heard of Obama or Clinton or Reagan or Bush? Like, yo, you hear Bush sent out a tweet at 2:30 last night?
Right. But again,
that's absurd.
But that's what he was elected because he wasn't that at all, right? He wasn't a quote unquote politician. You know,
I really thought he would bring in some wranglers.
I think he did. I just think he got tired of them. Like,
they never do that. I don't know.
A lot of them kind of came and went so fast, and
you think he would be like, "Look, I won the presidency. This isn't my strength. I'm going to bring in people who are press secretaries."
Well, he wanted to. He was saying it, but I think his pool kind of became so limited because he alienated so many people. Like,
somebody's got to stop the guy because it would be better if he just learned. Here's the thing.
People
with
were saying
Trump.
it for 3.5 years.
Donald. People think I'm a Trump supporter because I'm more conservative and I don't like the left.
Yeah,
I'm not I think Donald Trump's an idiot. I honestly do. I can't stand him as the president. But I don't disagree with a lot of his policy. Based on just policy, I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of on the same page as him.
It's the way he articulates it.
You need to say it this way.
Yeah.
Like if you want to have border control, you want to, like, you don't, he says things. He wants the, you can't fucking make this up. He wants to make the wall out of like steel. Because it gets really hot in the summer and the steel will heat up. I go, this is like Game of Thrones. Like, what do you... So you want if they try to get over the wall, it sears the flesh off their hands? I go, even if you're thinking that, like that's a good strategic thing, like don't say it.
But that's him.
And then he wants to paint the wall black because he's like, it's ominous. Like it's a big black giant wall. It'll be like, I go, what are you doing? We just want to keep people out because you have to have some kind of vetting process, but you don't have to make it seem like... It's just the way he articulates it. Yes. It's so unnecessary.
And it draws a reaction on both sides.
Well, it's visceral reaction. Yeah. It's like just, you can play a little bit. You're the president of the United States. Like, just soften it.
I think he tries, and then his personality.
Not him at all. Well, it's like you said before. I mean, he's a guy from Queens. He's a New York real estate mogul. It's not his personality. That's what he did for 70 years.
Look, if I got a TV show, somebody say whatever happens, I end up with some sitcom. I don't know anything about that world.
Yeah.
I wouldn't just walk into it
and act like you own the place.
Kicking the fucking doors down. Be like, this is what it's going to be. I'd find somebody who's worked in this industry. I'd get a manager who's handled Kevin James or Ray Romano, handled TV stars, and I'd have some people. Sure. I'd have some people who know what the fuck I should be doing to give me some consults. I wouldn't just wing it and be like, well, I got here on my own and I'm going to do it on my own.
It's worked so far.
Well, I mean, he became, that's what I'm saying. It worked. He became fucking president, you know? Like, why change? I think that's sort of his mentality, you know? It's hard to break him, especially at 76. You know, like, you're not going to change the guy. But how he got to who he was in the first, you know what I mean? To have that personality and the way that he talked, like, he's such a character. You know, how did he, I don't know. I don't know. Like, I'm from Queens, again, like I said, but I don't know anyone remotely like him, you know. But it's almost like he grew up in a completely different time, a completely different era. And, you know, he's had the world in his palm of his hand. So, like, people will say, oh, I wish his temperament was a little different. I wish he'd change. It's just never going to happen. I mean, why?
He has no
reason to.
Because it is creating a hostility.
There's no doubt about that.
He's fueling it.
But it was already there. What's the reason Trump got elected in the first place, right? And he makes the point, you know, whether it's because people turned against Obama. I know people didn't like Hillary, but if Obama did a good job, it's the same way people hated Bush, right? Bush essentially created Obama, and Obama created Trump. Trump is not the cause. He's the symptom. People are just reacting with, you know.
I agree with you, but the reason I've never been into politics is I felt like it never really affected my life.
Right.
Well, there's also...
What's what I'm saying? There's been a drastic change now.
This affects my life, who's in office right now.
It's funny because...
it's a selfish thing.
My dad always drilled the point down into me that you have to show up for your local school budget vote, because he actually made that point where he's like, people will bitch about the president and their senators and their governors. In actuality, like, it takes so long for their policies to filter down to you, but they don't show up for their local school budget vote, which actually directly affects how much they're going to pay that year in taxes. And he's like, where does that concept come from? Where it's like they bitch about this and don't realize that this is what actually affects their life.
Because they can't get a Kohl's charge card. That's why.
That's a good way of putting it.
But that at the same time, that's for politicians. We're supposed to elect them, and they're supposed to go represent, and we're not supposed to carry it, not at a deep personal level. Like, would you say your life has changed drastically since, like, do you feel it? Like, the day Trump became president, or a year, like...
Yes, I feel a massive change in my life.
You just mean like more recently, or like before? Let's say before coronavirus and all this shit.
Yeah, before coronavirus. And again, I blame a lot of that on social media.
Okay.
Yeah,
this platform, this hatred, and there's so much misinformation. But people's information, I got a Facebook post. I go, well, I'll show you 10 that say this and 10 that say that. It depends what narrative you want. You can find anything.
Right. Yeah.
the problem with a lot of social media sites is like something like Facebook, because it's the one I know the most about. Facebook is a very far left site. Zuckerberg and all the employees are very far left.
Twitter's probably even further left.
But it's not a platform that's like, well, you post what you want, being left-wing and democratic, and you post what... It is clearly edited.
Right.
Yeah, it's clearly edited. So it stops being this open platform, and it becomes almost journalistic. It becomes like, well, there's a clear point of view on this website, because anything that's...
They have algorithms that, like, they filter things towards you that, like, they think is going to keep you engaged, whether it's triggering you or just...
Have you seen how quick any doctor who puts up something that contradicts... There's been several, and they could be bullshit, but they could not be. These are not quackpots. These are medical doctors who worked for the CDC, and they put up stuff, and I go, well, they're trashed immediately, and their stuff is pulled down. I go, okay, you're saying it violates our community standards because it could be false information. I go, you know how much shit I've seen the other way about Trump that is literally a straight-out lie?
Yeah.
Like, literally, and I know nothing about politics. I go, that's not what he said. Anybody who thinks that what he said is a moron.
I actually saw something with Kamala Harris this week for the first time. It had like a little fact check on the bottom where it was like, this has been vetted. Did you see the clip where she said 18 to 24-year-old college students are stupid? Yeah.
Oh, did she? No, I didn't see that.
It was like a clip of, obviously it was taken from a speech, and like that was like the one line of like a little joke that she was being sarcastic.
A recent speech or something? Or?
I don't know if it was that.
Pretty recent.
She was a senator, so it had to be 2014 or later. So
yeah, that was in the last like
and so
4 years.
What did they put on it? What was the warning?
They just put like a little check on the bottom that says information in this may be
verified.
misleading.
It was correct, so it was correct.
No, it wasn't correct. It said it may be misleading.
Oh, interesting.
The one I saw on Facebook, it said this information has been labeled like this because it may be misleading.
It's not. It's what she said.
Right.
It's what she said. I mean, it was taken out of context.
Opinion.
That's what she said.
That's a clear opinion. I mean, you're entitled to that.
Here's what she said on Colbert the other night. And how this just gets swept under, like this is an incidental statement. Like, this is a pretty major thing. She got called out because everybody knows when she was debating against Biden.
Yeah,
she threw Biden under the bus about sexual harassment. I believe very
she called him flat out racist too.
You're racist. I believe these women.
Yeah,
women, me too. Got to speak up. I believe these women. You're a sexual predator. It was like 8 months ago.
Yeah,
nothing about it now. Colbert asked her about it. How do you swing so far away from what you said? And she laughed maniacally and went, it's a debate. Like, that's what it's a debate.
She just kept saying that over and over.
What that means is, it's like it's a boxing match. You do what you got to do to win.
Right, exactly.
I go, so you're saying you lied just to win a debate. Well, why would I listen to anything you say from this point forward? What you're basically saying is I'll say anything I have to say if it gives me an advantage.
Right.
So did you believe these women? Or you didn't. It's one or the other. So which is it? Do you mean what you said 8 months ago, that you believe Joe Biden is a sexual harasser and a predator and a racist, or you never believed that and you just said it because it was a debate?
That's what I'm saying. I think we can...
But that was a question she never answered and just went away. If that was somebody on the right...
Yeah, they don't press anybody on the left.
This would never end.
Yeah.
It's a really weird, so like people's heads become, but again, if you don't have the ability to decipher information and be educated for yourself and do your own homework, if you're the guy, sitting at home playing Xbox all day.
It's one of those things people don't know how to be objective. I said to you this week about...
Because the media is 90% liberal, and it filters through them. They're the medium through which everything travels. And then if you don't really try to think for yourself... I can see how you can easily just fall into it.
Which you had to do a little bit before social media.
Yeah, you had to actually
do some
listen
to debates,
right.
and you had to base your opinion. Now, look, people won the presidencies. Jimmy the Greeks once said that somebody told him to bet on Harry Truman because women liked his mustache. And he put down like $1 million on Harry Truman, and he won the election because. Wow. But people do vote on very weird shit.
Yeah. Sure, and I think now more than ever they vote on social issues.
What does that mean? The trusting face.
It actually was a thing. When Kennedy debated Nixon, people who listened on the radio thought that Nixon won, but people who watched on TV thought that Kennedy looked better, so they thought that he did a better job. He presented better.
But again, that kind of goes back to the thing about...
Kennedy clearly looked better.
Racist.
If you go back and look at it.
And sweat. I mean, he's a good-looking Irishman, Kennedy, all that. But it kind of goes back to you think about racism. Like, you're not a racist, but you're a visual creature at the same time. You make observations. You make calculations. Like, you can notice differences between people. Is that a bad thing? Should you suppress that? I mean, I don't think so. It is what it is.
I think it's more of we need to just be aware of it.
This idea that racism is going to be eliminated is such a silly
thing
for me.
But I'm going to go as far as where is it today? Like, certainly, where is it from white people? Certainly, I never see examples of it. I can never, systemics, or I don't know what the hell that means. That's just, someone said, even a black person on Bill Maher the other day is like, first of all, systemic racism is just repetitive, like racism in nature. It's not about an individual act. Like, people can just be assholes. You know what I'm saying? There's you have to make that distinction between, like, if I get into a fight and I get I've said this last, like, I'm going to pick out the most obvious thing about you that I know that can hurt you. And it might be, your skin color, it might be your fat, it might be your nose or something like that. And I'm going to go after that. Does that make me, I don't know, racist or sexist or whatever? I mean, I don't think so. It might just make you an asshole.
I mean, you may not be, but like, you could see how someone's going to just draw that distinction from you if you say that. I mean, that's fine. And then I feel like that's their way of being an asshole back and trying to hurt me. You know what I'm saying? Like, call the white person a racist. And
it's become an argument without any evidence. So
right.
If I have a disagreement with somebody who's of a different ethnic background than me, and I throw a fact at them they don't have an answer for, the response is going to be, you're male toxicity, you're mansplaining, you got white privilege, I'm like, you're a racist. I'm like, what the fuck does that have to do? Where are you getting that from? By the way, that's the definition of racism. You just judge me without knowing anything about me based on the fact that I'm white. It's
almost like that Seinfeld skit where it's like, they finally think of a good comeback, 2 weeks later, the jerk store is out of you.
But that's nobody wants their character assaulted like that. And in this mob mentality of social media, when somebody calls you racist, that's career ending. They don't need evidence.
Right.
They don't need any. You don't need proof of racism.
It just has to go viral and you're just labeled
All you got to do is go, oh, you're white, privileged, racist. And I go, what the hell did I do? What are you talking about? You based on nothing. But if you say it, if I start to defend myself, all of a sudden, that's the problem. You're like, what's the problem? I don't get, like, you can't win. You really almost can't win. And people are afraid. It's like a Me Too thing. Somebody comes out, there was this whole believe all women.
Right. Yeah.
I go, well, that's kind of a generalization. Believe all women?
Right.
All? Like, that's like saying believe, guys, I don't think you're right. Believe all men. All men. Believe all men. Do people be like, guys are lying pieces of shit? And I'd be like, well, no, do I think girls lie about rape?
Unfortunately, they do.
I think the majority are very honest about it. It's a very traumatic thing. I used to work as a counselor for 6 years. The rate of sexual abuse was 100%. I worked in drug counseling.
Okay.
It's 100% was the rate of sexual abuse with girls. Every single girl I came through the rehab had some history of sexual abuse. I don't think a lot of people lie about it, but I think people do lie about it. They lie about it for money. They're monetized. If I go after a celebrity, I go, he sexually harassed me. TMZ will give me $100,000 for my story.
That happened in the NFL. I don't think it was Tyreek Hill.
I can think of 6 examples off the top of my head of women who lied.
Just to kind of go after him for a settlement or something like that?
Financial, for vengeance. Now, again, it's not the norm, but to just say, believe all women, I go, well, you got to have some kind of proof of something. It can't just be this, I said it, so ruin him. I have no information. It's going on with Jeffrey Ross right now. It's going on with Chris D'Elia. It's going on with Brian Callen. I don't know if they did it or didn't. I'm not saying they're innocent. Brian Callen's getting rape allegations. But Brian Callen's one of the few. Brian Callen's very articulate and very smart. And Brian Callen, what they tell most people is disappear.
Just lay low.
Lay low. So Chris D'Elia did it. Jeffrey Ross actually filed suit against her. Jeffrey Ross did not. He's like, I'm going to bring a countersuit against her.
Right.
Brian Callen's doing a tour.
I think that's the smartest way to go about it.
You can watch him on Louder for Crowder. He's been on shows, and he's like, I 100% did not do this, and I'm not going to sit back while my name is ruined.
Right.
Because it never happened.
But
it doesn't matter. He's already had to take, he's got The Fighter and the Kid. He's got a huge podcast.
Right. With
he has to do it at Patreon now. He had to go stealth.
Well, because YouTube fucking sucks, and that's part of the reason Joe Rogan's switching over to Spotify.
That's one of 100 million reasons Joe Rogan's switching over to Spotify.
But
Rogan's great, by the way. He's a great interview. He's really good.
Yeah, and he just shoots off the cuff. He doesn't
very smart guy,
but he's interested in like all. I think that's the key. He's interested in all these different.
He gets guys
areas.
like Jordan Peterson on, and he like kind of hangs in dialogue with them, and I'm like,
sort of. He just kind of lets them riff, and
but he's understanding where it's at. He knows he's very well.
Well, he's at least smart enough to say, "Oh, I'm an idiot," though on like certain things. You know what I mean? Like
fascinating guy, Rogan.
Yeah.
Never loved the stand up, but fascinating guy.
Yeah, I feel the same way about him. He's just one of those.
he puts,
dirty comics that
just like he's a likable guy.
Yeah. Well, he tries to be reasonable, and that's I think that's so in today's world. That's what made him so successful. And he's admittedly a Bernie Sanders guy. I mean, he's a far left guy in terms of his policy. Like
for some, he's.
I think he said like universal basic, but again, like he's like a Bill Maher. Like it doesn't believe in the believe all women bullshit. Like believes in freedom of speech. Doesn't believe in canceling people and all that shit. And that's just.
And I hate to say that because
approach.
I never want to say like, well, don't believe, but you do have to give somebody the benefit of that. I'm thinking of me or you if there's some girl comes forward from 15 years ago and I'm rich now. And
it's like, why didn't you say anything 15 years ago?
I used to hang out with him. I can get a payday off of this. It does happen.
Sure.
Or there's other like I knew a kid from the Duke lacrosse scandal. I know one of those kids. I
remember that.
That was a complete fabrication.
They completely ruined those kids. I mean,
could have.
I mean, well, they didn't at the time though. I mean, when you think about it, I mean, they had scholarships on it. Like
they
very
all
successful
came from very wealthy families, so they were fortunate. If they didn't, they'd be in jail.
Yeah. Absolutely,
the defense, they had to hire like Alan Dershowitz. They hired like top lawyers,
top here.
And even then, they had to find out that the district attorney there, the prosecutor, was doctoring DNA evidence. He wanted a conviction because he was going to be a judge.
So he wanted to look good.
And one of the kids, who won't be on, there was a 30 for 30 documentary from ESPN. It's great. The kid refused to be on camera, but he formed an organization to help free people wrongfully accused. And he went back to every one of those DA's cases of the last like 10 years. And if there was 50 of them, like 30 have been overturned. Like 30. And the guy did not get jail. He got disbarred.
Because he was just
because he was
trying to get himself over, basically.
He should be in jail for 20 years.
Yeah. That's about the worst that's going to happen to you is they disbar you. Because, these prosecutors, there's a...
But that's like... But
they're trying to get themselves over.
Outcry, did you see that? Did you see her? That
I kind of was in and out of it.
Yeah, I don't usually watch that kind of shit, He
did time, though, right?
He did 3 years. And that's like, I think 17 to like 20, 17 or 20 or 21. Yeah, I mean, and he was going to be a D1 football player.
He's a hard 20-year-old, that kid. That's like a hard 20-year-old.
Dude,
he's seen some shit.
Yeah. Well, he said like in the one of the final episodes, talking to his mother, because he's in there for raping a girl. And those are, they give you like a bigger jumpsuit so you stick out. And even though you got a black guy who murdered like 7 people, but he thinks you're a piece of shit because, you did something to a kid or a girl, you know what I'm saying? So he was talking about being, they tried to knife him in there. They were trying to beat him up and he was just lucky. Like he was, punched and beat up a few times, but never, badly hurt. But to tough it out for 3 years. And the thing was, there was such an other obvious...
he was innocent without a doubt?
Eventually they gave him the kid's innocence and he was freed. And I mean, he's like... He had the best of both worlds and the worst of both worlds because he had this incredible support system. He had a girlfriend who stuck with him the entire time and then marries him afterwards.
Yeah,
and
she's
dime piece.
She's damaged.
There's a reason there that we don't know about.
I believe her. She was abused.
But it's literally like the craziest story. He lived with I don't know, there was this weird situation where he was like, at 17, he was like living in a house with another kid who looked identical to him. Like they're both like half white, half Mexican or something like that.
Is that how we got? That was the confusion?
Well, they looked, when they held up side by side photo, that wasn't the confusion. The confusion, what essentially happened is however he got his lawyer was the lawyer for this other kid and his family for like years. So when it went to trial, she didn't like bring up the side-by-side photos of how they looked alike. She did nothing to help this kid.
They got the stuttering lawyer from my cousin Vinny. That's it.
I mean, they literally looked exactly alike. And this kid had been he had like 4 brothers. They've all been arrested at some point in their life. The older brother had been accused of fondling like a little kid. This kid's been arrested 16 times now. He just got arrested for raping a girl. And this kid did 3 years. This kid, he's only doing 6 months for flat out rape of like a 15. So he's barely done any jail time. The system just totally, I mean, again, you got to assume it's a complete outlier. But it fucked him more ways than you could. But now he's I think he's at Texas A&M playing D1 football, trying to walk on or something like that. But I don't know I don't know how you keep it together. Like he's the toughest kid I've ever seen in my life.
Until shit happens to you, everybody can walk around in a bubble until shit happens to you.
Yeah.
And now it's like, I better pay attention to this. And that's what's going on for me with politics is all of a sudden, like this is a weird time. I've never seen this before. It was always like, well, the president wants to do this. And then it gets run by, it's like, it's not one dude making the decision.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I have this idea. The president did an executive order a month ago. We're going to add 400 back on unemployment. We can defer payroll taxes, whatever other rules he had.
Right. They're arguing the constitutionality of
well, because it goes through Congress.
Right. They're supposed
Here
to
in New York State, they've given executive power to Cuomo.
Right.
He doesn't have to run shit by anybody.
Yeah.
He's literally a dictator.
Well, that's because they have, all three chambers of the government are dominated by Democrats now.
And they hand it over. So it's not like when Cuomo comes up with a rule, he's like, this is what I want to do. And now he's going to run it by Congress or the Senate. He just goes, this is what I'm going to do. And guess what? We're doing it now.
Yeah.
That's a lot of power to give to one dude.
I think that's also a product of the fact that for a while there was a caucus of Democrats that were actually agreeing with Republicans, and they were trying to stick it to Cuomo because
I don't like anybody having that much power, though. I don't care if you're Democrat,
that
Republican. I don't want anybody having that much
completely defeats the whole point of the American
the
system.
whole system of like checks and balances.
Like I've never thought of getting a gun before. I am absolutely looking into a gun permit.
I'm going tomorrow. I'm going tomorrow with my friend. That's how bad it is. But
somebody
again,
comes into my house, I'm shooting them.
Yeah. Well, if they come into your house, I mean, they're literally on your property.
No, but you've seen a lot of videos.
Tell that to the couple in St. Louis who work on felony charges.
Bring them up.
You know what I mean? It makes you go, what the fuck is going on?
That was one of those things where I was like, I don't know if they broke into anybody or fucked with anybody else like on that block's property, but like
they bent his metal gates.
Okay.
They didn't wander onto his property.
Yeah.
He has big metal gates. They like bent them like Kong came through the metal gates.
Come out with the guns. They went back in and got them because they were saying they were going to kill him, that they were going to kill their dog. They were going to.
Even that is hearsay, though. Like I'm going to give him that.
I think there's video of it. I mean,
you can't hear what they're saying. Like I haven't seen that. So
I can imagine it wasn't nice things.
I'm only going to base on what I know factually. They bent the gates. There was 100 people in their yard. They were acting hostile. They burned the 7-Eleven down the street a week ago, and he said it took 6 hours for police to arrive. Like, people aren't going into the neighborhoods.
Yeah.
They just let it burn to the ground. So he's like, I felt in fear. They were aggressive. It's terrorism. They had their guns. They're so ridiculous looking. It didn't help them. Him with the doctors. First of all, he didn't have a gun. The guy has to have like an AR-15. Like he had to come out with it.
She had the little.
But she was waving it like she was working at the perfume.
And they're talking about she could have shot him in the back of the head.
There was a lot of this stuff.
Well, you see that picture where like literally he's standing there like this, and it's like her head's right here,
Yeah,
the barrel's right here.
Hold it. She looks like something from Golden.
That barrel should have been down.
Yeah.
He had the gun up, but we're not trained.
Right, they probably never thought
we're
they'd
not
have
Navy
to.
SEAls. Like if I have 100 people threatening me and I have a gun, I'm not thinking like stand down. Like I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
I'm gonna go to a Target like twice. I'm gonna go shoot a fucking like that's gonna be my training.
Work? Yeah. All right.
It's gonna be how do you pull a trigger? Like so. They're probably scared. That guy happens to be a lawyer.
I'm sure he was terrible. Yeah, he was in his like pink polo. He was probably just
everything about him.
Smoking a cigar, inside.
I think he was actually like a civil rights lawyer.
Yes.
They were both lawyers,
yes.
I think.
He's a civil rights lawyer.
He was on Fox News talking about how he's defending a black kid who was, just like involved in the looting like the day before. Yeah. But that's the problem. They just don't.
Why
they
are they
care.
up on felony charge? I don't even get that. I'm like, based by and Trump came right out and goes, "Good for them. They're supposed to defend their property."
Well, just like we were saying before, sometimes prosecutors just want to get themselves over. Like you were saying that they were doctoring evidence. I mean.
Yeah, there's a black female prosecutor supposedly in St. Louis.
She was that mayor of Chicago, man. That's a weird looking woman.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't agree with anything she does, but have you seen what she looks like?
She's got like the no hair.
She looks like an alien.
Short, like white hair.
She's the one who went and got a haircut like 2 months ago and said, "Oh well, I got to get my hair done."
Well, I got to
nobody
address
else
that. I know this is. I'm not a political person. Obviously, I have opinions, but I'm not the most educated with them. I have a real fucking problem with Cuomo writing a book in the middle of this.
Yeah.
I didn't even hear about this.
Cuomo has a book called The COVID Crisis.
Really?
I'm like, in the middle of this, you're going to write we're all poor, you're shutting down all our work, and you just signed a book deal?
What is it about a great job that he did?
Yeah, it's basically a self-congratulation.
Lecturing on how everything should be done.
I killed 10,000 elderly people
Think
in
about the
nursing
elderly
homes.
people, where our state is number one in cases, number one in deaths.
Well, we're not number one in cases anymore. We're still number one in deaths.
Are we?
We have like
the best in total.
We have like 35,000 deaths. We're like number 3 in cases now. California and Florida,
Florida
blew past.
Florida blew past that.
Yeah, I mean, because they have a lot of infections between like the youth, whereas in New York it kind of like ripped through like senior citizens, like retirement homes.
There's a lot of beer pong in Florida. Yeah, a lot.
Well, there's a lot of old people too that have moved down from New York.
But they're not dying in Florida and close to the numbers that they were dying here. But I wonder.
That's the thing. They have like a third of the amount of deaths, but they have like 100,000 more cases.
Well, of course, Cuomo blames it on density here in New York, but that's just total bullshit. I can remember them out in March saying, "Come on down to Chinatown." Remember that? They're standing out there making.
New York. I've traveled. New York is 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. I've been to a lot of states.
Yeah,
it is dense. I'm not gonna. I hate Cuomo. you can't open up New York State and not think there's going to be a spike. You're elbow to elbow with human beings. Well, we're sardines in this city. When I leave here, when I go to do shows on the road, I'm like, look at what I can do. I can move my elbows. Like, it's fucking different.
Well, there's a lot of people that have fled now. They said like something like a couple 100,000.
Especially people with money.
425,000 people since March have left the city. But what's still crazy is, according to Zillow, home sales in New York City, like just in the city itself, are through the roof. They're like up 300%.
Well, because it's so much cheaper. Yeah.
They're like, this shit will end. I'm going to get this house on the cheap.
Yeah,
that's smart, man.
I'm curious what's going to be with commercial real estate, because like, I'll use Caroline's Comedy Club. It's right in the heart of Times Square. Okay. If you've ever been inside, I've ever been inside there, it's a big piece of real estate. It's not all functional real estate. You walk in, there's like a staircase, there's a bar, there's like seating next to the bar, there's another long hallway. I'm like, how much is a square foot on 48th and Broadway?
A lot.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So Caroline's is massive, and the showroom's like 380 people.
But it's been there a while, right?
It's been there a long time. It's legendary because it's a tourist and it's Caroline's. It has a name. It used to be at the Seaport when I was young. It was Caroline's at the Seaport. They moved to Times Square. But I don't think they can survive this. They weren't crushing it before this.
Right.
So I'm like, does somebody swoop in? Or does that become a fucking Skechers store? Well, or does it become a comedy club again?
I imagine someone from China purchases it, you know.
I just want it to be an Olive Garden because they have a kitchen. You know what I mean? We don't need another Olive Garden.
No, right.
Like, I want it to be I want it to be Caroline's Comedy Club.
But there are a lot of places that aren't gonna come back. I mean, it's an unfortunate.
The restaurant business will be decimated.
Dude,
restaurant,
it's
bars,
already decimated.
hotels.
Actually, they said hotels. They said the hospitality industry is #1 in terms of what's been hit.
Yeah. I mean,
did you see that De Blasio moved in inmates and
the same thing with San Francisco. They already reversed that now.
They're at the Ritz-Carlton. The homeless are living in the Ritz-Carlton.
Some of those nice places with like guys with sexual assault records, rape. Yeah. They're like a block away from a
Democrats
playground.
hate them. I don't know anybody who likes De Blasio on any side.
You saw the report. His wife is dropping like $2 million on her staff because she's running for Brooklyn something president or something.
Again, I'm gonna judge you just like the Coles card. Have you seen his daughter?
Oh,
De Blasio?
Yeah, you seen De Blasio's daughter?
Yeah.
Oh, you've never seen her? She's like a protester. She's got like the wooden dowels in her ears.
That picture where she was like...
she's a shit show.
Yeah.
Like, I know that he did that thing where, like, even when gym shut down, he was still commuting to the Y in Brooklyn, you know, over the bridge, you know, forcing an SUV to take him every day. But
my problem with Cuomo, because when he started, Cuomo's a very articulate man.
I went to my high school.
Who did?
Went to the same high school. Archbishop Law in Queens.
Who did that?
Cuomo.
Oh,
Andrew
did he?
Cuomo, yeah.
Oh. What about the brother? About Fredo?
Piece of shit.
But Cuomo, like when this first started happening, he'd come out. No talking points, no cue cards, and he would go through this as a public speaker. I'm watching, like, this guy's been in politics since he was 7.
Yeah.
Like, he's
well,
really...
His father was the governor, too.
You can really see, and he was the Attorney General of New York, which is like...
And he was also...
It's like Billions. Like, he's, that guy's sketchy because you can't be the Attorney General of New York and you have your fingers and everything.
And just be clean.
But he was very articulate and very well spoken. I didn't dislike him. I'm like, all right, this is unprecedented. None of us know what the fuck's going on. I don't have any answers. I'm like, what is a virus? We got to shut everything. How do you shut? Now it's weird because it's kind of become it's amazing what you get used to.
Yeah, that's true.
Like when this first happened, I'm like, what do you mean shut down? Like the first thing I heard is they would cancel. Somebody in the NBA got COVID. And like, we're canceling the NBA. I go, canceling a sports season? I've never heard of this. Like,
he and I were working together at the time, and he texted me. He was like, do we have to go to work tomorrow? I was like, what do you mean? He goes, they just canceled the NBA season. Like, are we even allowed to go to work? Like, what the hell's going on?
It's a very... So when they started shutting something, I'm like, all right, I don't know. Like, this is what we got to do. I'm gonna listen to him. He's the governor. Right. Like, let's... And then as the months went by, it started off with, this is a tough time. We're New York strong. We're going to get through this. And now it's just like, yeah, we're not opening the gym. Like, that's it.
Yeah,
I'm like, dude, you're like the guy who smacks his girlfriend, and you're like, baby, I'm so sorry. I just lost my temper. I'm going to make it up to you. And after like 5 months later, you're just beating the shit out of her on a regular basis. And she's just like she's broken. She's got Stockholm Syndrome. Like, we're all just like, well, Cuomo said I can't just have chicken wings. It's not a meal. It doesn't count.
Well, that's what bothers me so much about Democrats. Is they say we're going to listen to the science. By the way,
you do know that, right?
That you can't
have chicken wings. Like he was regulating.
Well, because what happened is they didn't want you standing at the bar, so you got to order food if you get a drink. And you're like, well, I'm not hungry.
Yeah.
I don't want food. It's 10 o'clock at night. I'm at a comedy show. I don't want. So I would order like they started the bars would order like French fries for $1. They would call them Cuomo fries. They were fucking with it. They were like, order fries. You're good. It's $1.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, whatever. I don't even care if I eat them. But then Cuomo came in. He goes, no, you have to get a substantial meal. And he started listing shit that's not a meal. He's like, wings are not a meal. I'm like, have you ever had 24 wings? That's a significant meal. Like, you're sick afterwards. So I actually tried to write a joke about it, but it's like I don't like writing COVID jokes because they're very time sensitive.
Yeah.
Like you have them and then they're gone, so it doesn't help my act. I want to write shit that I'm going to be using for 3 years.
Yeah.
Not stuff I'm going to be able to do for 6 weeks and then it's over.
Well, I mean, you could do a Cuomo joke in that sense because he's been around for freaking 10 million years.
Wait, so
now.
just out of curiosity, where do you go? Do you still like perform? Like what? How does that?
I can't even say because they can shut them down.
I'm
basically doing like
names, but I mean you are.
I'm doing like underground comedy.
Speakeasies and shit. That's funny.
A little bit. It's kind of how we do it. Because everything shut. There's no comedy allowed.
Right.
There's not much. I had a show. I did a country club about 2 months ago. It was my first show in like 3 months. I had to do a half an hour. I was a little nervous because I hadn't been up. And then I did Governors. The first weekend they opened indoors.
Okay.
Which was fucking weird.
That's with the plexiglass?
I was in the plexiglass box and stuff like that. And shout out to Governors. They did it. He didn't have to open. He doesn't make a lot of money opening because it's very difficult. You had to spend a lot of money to get that place to code, but he wants to be open.
That place, you're packed in there.
Not now, you're not.
No, I would assume not.
So
I would assume.
I opened for Joey Cola. Joey Cola is like a Long Island legend. Joey sells. He's got a following here. He can sell tickets.
He's funny.
They don't give free tickets away for Joey Cola. Like some guys like me, they'll paper the room, they call it. They'll send out free tickets for a guy like me. Joey Cola, you have to buy tickets. Because of COVID, they didn't. They sent out free tickets. They're trying to get everybody back. Friday night, there was 17 people. And Saturday, there were 21. One show a night, too. Saturday's usually 2 shows. They did 1. There was 21 people. Indoors, everybody spaced out. And I was like, that was the first time I was like, I really thought I was wrong. I really thought when they opened up the clubs, people would flock out, that they're tired of being in their houses. They don't give a shit. They're dying to laugh. They're going to come out. And I walked out into the box, and I was like, I guess I was wrong. Nobody wants to be. The outdoors at Governors was doing pretty well. Like they can sell out there, whatever selling out is. People don't. Indoors was very difficult.
Right.
But he would run both shows at the same time. So even if you got 30 inside, it's 30 more people. Like he's got to make money. He's got a staff. He's got bartenders. You got wait staff. You got cooks.
You got to buy all those materials. You got bills you got to pay, utilities. I mean,
and I'm sure he's laid people off. I mean, you know.
Not really laid off, kind of furloughed, but he's using who he has. But you don't need 3 bartenders if there's 30 people there. Yeah. You don't need 10 waitresses. On a like a Sebastian weekend, 8 shows, all sold out, all hands on deck.
Right.
And everybody's making money. So even if you do work as a waitress, there's 4 tables.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, good, I worked on that. I made $47.
Right.
Like fucking, this is gonna, like I was.
What's that gonna do for you?
I used to make 2. My niece was a waitress there. Good nights. My niece could make $300.
Yeah,
make good living working. One night a week, make $300 cash. She work her ass off, but you do 2 shows in a night, sold out.
Right.
Make good money.
$300 is one thing, but like $47. I mean, what do you do with that?
But if you're accustomed to making 2, $175, now you're making $50. You're like, yeah, I'm working, but what am I going to do with this?
And isn't it like if you go back to work, then you're not entitled to the PPP benefits? I think
not
it
if
is.
you're if you say you went back
get unemployment,
you can claim like. So if you're a full-time employee and you go back to work, but you're working 2 days, you can say, return to my job working 2 days, and they'll give you a prorated amount of the unemployment.
Right.
But you'll still get the. It doesn't matter now because the $600's over.
Yeah.
And the $400 executive order is in limbo someplace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the scariest thing is they're printing all this money that they don't have, and so. Is there a solution in sight? I mean,
a hamburger is going to cost you $114 in 2021. I bought chopped meat the other day, and I got to the register. I was like, how much were those 4 patties? It's like $17 for 4 fucking sirloin patties at like King Cullen.
There's some type of meat shortage now going on in the country. I mean, things are all
trucking
fucked up.
shortage, shipping shortage, storage shortage at the factories. Like it's hard to get shit. Plus, your dollar will become basically worthless.
It's already the euro's already taken off and the dollar's weaker. So
you can't just keep
it's
printing
not sustainable.
money. But here's the thing: it's the Kohl's guys again. It's the Kohl's charge card people again. They don't know there's such a thing as a Federal Reserve Bank. They don't understand how this works. They don't understand the supply. They just go like, "Why don't you just print more money?" But you see the movie Idiocracy?
Yeah.
It has electrolytes. It has electrolytes. Like that's them. It's good for you. It has electrolytes. Like that's all. That's what they are.
But that's the problem. That's the responsibility
if you haven't
of
seen
our
the movie,
leaders.
Watch that movie.
I can see the joke though. I mean,
it's a really ahead of its time movie.
Is that movie where it's like they go forward in the future and everyone's an idiot?
Everybody's an idiot.
Yeah.
But it's dead on.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm a doctor. Basically, your shit's really fucked up.
Yeah. Oh, it's Luke Wilson.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very funny.
I've had
all
somebody
people talk about his electrolytes.
I've had somebody point out the movie to me before.
This is kind of where we're at.
Yeah.
It's kind of where we're at. And
my favorite joke that you did, was the Asian. I'm going to butcher it, but The Asian one where
Chinese
you
restaurant.
you walk in, the kids doing homework.
Yeah, nobody's offended by that.
Yeah.
You know something?
It's just such
Asians are very successful. You can make fun of them.
Well,
Again, it's
they're being lumped
quality of
in
outcome.
with the whites. You know, you saw that Yale, they discriminate, you know, against the Asians
it's
and
the
the white.
richest race in the country is Asian.
It's
Yeah, right now I think it surpassed Jews and Italians. Whoever. Yeah, because they come here again. They come here. And mostly, usually, immigrants do the best, at least for that first generation, because you know they have the immigrant mentality. Whatever, you know, they want they want their kids to be successful. So
every time Rob talks, I'm waiting for it to take a bad turn.
I'm trying. I always try.
I'm like, I used to bring a stress ball in with me. I'm waiking for it.
He's
like, here it
he's
comes.
like, when they come over here, and I'm like squeezing the handles on my chair. I'm like, oh.
I'm being so good right now. Right? He has no idea. But no, there's truth in that, right? I mean, it's just an observation. It's the intelligent thing to do. You know, you're worried about the next. You know, so your kids, you focus on
It's a cultural thing.
the
Asian
things you
stress
can
education,
control, like sports and things. You know, depend on height, genetics, so on. You know what I mean? It's less controllable of an outcome. If you just sit down and you study and you read this book and you memorize, well, then you can become a doctor. You know, you can become a lawyer. Whatever. You know, it's just you know, you make money. It's the intelligent way to go about things. You know. And unfortunately, it tapers off usually after as you become wealthy.
Yeah.
You know, as you see nowadays, white people aren't doing all that great. You know,
what's making money now? It's fucking weird. It's like a weird what industries now make money.
Yeah.
Like if you would have told me in 2019, give me the top 5 growth industries of 2020, like tent rental wouldn't have cracked my top 100. Like the guy who's like, oh, so-and-so's having a graduation party, got to put a tent up on Saturday. Like that was their job.
Yeah.
They were happy when there was a graduation party. You got to put up a fucking tent. You went to the backyard. I'm like, how much money are those goobers making? 10 people now are like the richest. They're like app fucking designers. Like I rent tents for a living. I'm living in Sands Point in a mansion.
Yep. Like living with
10
Gatsby.
50 years from now, like we look back now, we're like, oh, they come from their old railroad money. Like that's what 25,
that's what
30
they
come. Those people come from old tent money. It's big tent money.
Yeah.
That's what we're going with.
You know what though? I remember sitting around in the beginning of this with some of my family members and like kind of predicting like, what do you think is going to start taking off? And literally, I was scouring for weights at that point. I'm like, I guess you know, home fitness stuff is going to take off. My mom was buying puzzles and stuff like that at home. She's like, I bet you things like Legos and like toys for kids are going to take off.
Dude, the hoarders are probably killing it right now. You're killing.
Did that do well? Legos?
Yeah, Legos, puzzles, all types of like home, like Nerf guns and stuff for at home.
People rekindling their childhood, whatever.
She bought herself a bicycle. You can't find a bike anywhere now.
I bought 500 vibrators. I'm selling them.
I bet you those. I guarantee you could probably Google that right now.
That's probably the number 2 business of mine. Tents,
Vibrator sales through the roof.
Dude,
it's like a bad Twilight Zone episode. I didn't buy any batteries. I just said, I'm like, that's a good Twilight Zone. That would be.
That sounds like a Seinfeld episode to me.
So yeah, it's like fucking guys who had plexiglass in their garage. It's like,
making a killing right now.
It's like, I got all this shitty plexiglass. Should I throw it out? His wife's been yelling at him for 8 years. Like, get rid of that.
It's gonna be worth a fortune someday.
He's sitting on an oil well. I didn't even know it.
I told you so. I told you so.
Bro, it's been impossible to find weights. That was the hardest thing. Like, I remember in the beginning.
You can get them at like $4 a pound.
I know.
Crazy.
No, I just fucking said whatever it costs, it costs. But yeah. In the beginning, trying to go on websites, wrote any of the top. I couldn't find shit, you know what I'm saying? And I didn't want shit from like 1972 that Arnold Schwarzenegger worked,
tubing,
rusted,
like the rubber tubing people work out with. You're not going to do that, but it's like tubing with handles.
Yeah, I have those. I fucking hate. Yeah,
you need. What are you going to do with those? You need 37 bands to do a bicep curl.
I at one point was going to buy a barbell, just the barbell, not the weights, from Walmart.com. And it was going to cost me like $250, and I was going to have to go to Amazon to buy the barbell plates, and they were going to wind up costing me another $200.
Yeah, you got to like piece it together, bro.
Comedian Joe DeVito.
Yeah,
great. He's actually a regular on Gutfeld. If you watch Gutfeld, he's always on Gutfeld. Yeah. He's a Fox writer. He's a great stand-up comedian. But he's into weightlifting, and he's working out at home and stuff. So he actually, while I was coming here, he's like, I'm on my way to Plainview. I found a guy who's got... But Joe is like old school. He's like into powerlifting.
Okay.
He's the guy in his living room, like shorts up the, like the small shorts with a kettlebell doing like Turkish get-ups in his living room. Like he's like old school. But he bought he got the 1-inch bar. You know, the old skinny bars? Not the Olympic ones with the fat. He's got like the 1-inch, but you got to find plates for those.
It's impossible.
But they're like from, those are like, the ones filled with sand in people's backyards. Like, shake them all the time. He's driving around. And he's like, I found a set of 280 pounds for like a pretty good price. So he was on his way to go get those now. But that's what it's like.
Yeah. You got a fucking piece of it.
It's like plutonium. You can't get this shit.
eBay and, find something from, 1983, some, weirdo who like has old rusty-ass plates lying around.
My favorite part, I'm going back to the gym on Monday. Like, I'm looking forward to going to a gym. I don't care if I got to wear a mask. I just need to. I want to be in a gym.
Yeah.
But my thing I'm looking forward to most is like some 50-year-old guy who refuses to wear his mask, and he's going to be yelling at some 18-year-old kid about the Constitution. Like at the, he's going to be like, my civil rights. The kid's going to be like, dude, I go to Nassau Community College. Like, you got to wear the mask.
Yeah.
He's just going to be screaming like amendment shit at him.
Yeah, it's just gonna be like 15-year-old girl at the front desk being like, I don't know what to.
Yeah, it's gonna be some girl, like her shirt
like,
tighter
sign
and
up
a knot.
She's gonna be like, dude, I'm sorry.
I have to
like
go
they
make a
told me I have to
drink
wear
at
a
the
mask.
juice bar now, sir. I can't handle this.
Yeah, that's exactly. And
But
I can't
you know
wait.
those guys. There's a few of them,
definitely coming.
especially that LA Fitness.
It's gonna be on YouTube immediately.
Oh yeah, somebody's gonna have a meltdown about that Constitution, and when it happens, it's gonna come to Cuomo and be like, shut them down. It's the end of the gyms.
Well, that's what I'm worried about. Is they'll just go right back to just
The
being
shitty thing that's been done is he comes up with these policies, and then people spend. People who are already behind the 8 ball, like a restaurant. You're like, I ate my balls for 5 months at this restaurant. I'm just trying to keep my doors open because everything's invested. I'm going to open at 30% capacity outside under a fucking tent. So it's going to be shitty. And you get HEPA filters for your AC, and you buy UV lights, and you buy plexiglass, and they're buying all the big planters in the parking lot to try to make it look like a restaurant, like you're not in a parking lot on the side of Jericho Turnpike. Like, it fucking looks like shit.
But they're trying to do what they can do.
They're trying to do what they can do to make it somewhat decent. They got to earn. And then they do this, and then Cuomo's like, no, we're going to close it. And it's like, dude, I just spent $28,000.
right. And you're
I'm
already not
broke.
making money, right? And then you got to spend a shit ton.
Governors spent. The owner, who I know very well, spent a lot of money to get those clubs above and beyond. Shit, he didn't have to. You don't have to buy the UV lights. I'm not going to say what they cost because if he ever hears this, I don't want to embarrass them. They're expensive.
Oh, yeah. They're using them on planes. And those shits are expensive.
And they'll kill
as shit.
anything.
Right. You can't even have people near them. They're so
No, you can't be in the building.
It'll
kill mice if there's mice.
Holy shit! Like it's just like designed to like kill any bacteria.
It'll
anything.
kill the coronavirus.
Yeah, they're using them.
So he
on
got
planes
I think he
and
got
shit.
2 for Governors because Governors is a big club, different parts, and he got Brokerage, and he got McGuire. He's got 3 clubs. He got to buy 4 of those lights plus the filters for the HVAC units. Got to have certain filters in there.
Like
it's not
Merv,
cheap.
Yeah, for like the air
13 or
conditioning.
some shit.
Yeah, I don't
well,
know.
I saw like the LA Fitness, like the
They have to get the
letter.
code.
Yeah. They got like all new filters, Merv 13 or some shit like that to get the air filter. But it's one thing for a major franchise or big corporation, but
That's
these mom
they're
and pop
private.
places.
LA Fitness is privately owned.
Is it?
Owned by an Asian guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like 500 locations. It's not It's not like a publicly traded. It's not a corporation.
Right.
Like he owns it.
Well, it's like the guy that owns Equinox. Remember he came out and supported Trump like a year
and
or two
everybody
ago?
That's a
started
real
coming
estate.
after him.
It's a real estate company. I used to work for Equinox.
Wait, what do you mean? It's
They're run by a real estate company.
I think it was more of Soul Cycle because that's the much more like.
But it was one guy that was
community,
attached
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah,
Whatever.
he might own the whole
He
real
threw
estate
like a
company, but it's
fundraiser
owned by
for.
like
Okay.
the guy's a real estate company. What he did, he bought the build. So every Equinox, he owns the real estate. He owns the buildings.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
So he bought it for the real estate investment. The gyms are like, all right.
Sprouted up.
I think
okay.
McDonald's actually does the same thing. Like, in order to buy into the franchise, you have to buy the property. So even if it goes bankrupt somehow, you still own the real
It's an
estate.
expensive property.
You see all the sexual harassment lawsuits against McDonald's? I don't know, apparently.
No, I didn't. What is this new?
I know apparently there's a lot of sexual harassment going on while they're flipping burgers or whatever the hell. I don't know.
I
So
know.
this falls under the believe all women.
Right,
I don't necessarily believe all the women who are on fries. I don't believe them all. I hate to say
All
that.
that oil's
Sure, a
going in
lot
it,
of them
yeah.
are being harassed because it's McDonald's.
Right. You know, you got to.
I think back, we didn't have a lot of women. There's not a lot of women in comedy. I mean, there are more in New York City, but like here on Long Island, there was like 2 girls doing comedy.
Yeah, it
I'd
feels
to
like
think.
there's a lot
There's
now.
not a lot of. There's more, but it's still not. When you go
I
to an
think they're
open
just
mic,
hyping up the few, you know.
still not as. It's still a male
No, but
dominated
oh,
in terms of
certainly.
numbers.
I believe-
yeah,
you know,
I'm
I think that
talking
makes
like.
sense.
I'm talking like. I would say it's 85% male.
And
I'm guessing. I'm pulling that number out of my ass, but it's definitely.
Sure.
But I think back to like conversations we used to have in green rooms with the girls there. Not harassing them and doing, but just the conversations alone.
Right.
I'm like,
you couldn't
could
get
never
away
be
with it.
repeated.
no. If there was an HR department, any one of those, any one of the 1,000 nights I worked would be enough to shut us down forever. That's what a green room is.
Yeah.
Right. You
You know?
know?
But now we know these people also. They're not random girls who
Yeah.
wandered in there. Like they're, you know.
But if like somebody did happen
they're
to
as
like,
demented as we are, so it's like they're
Well, that's
on
what I'm
board
saying.
with
Yeah,
it.
they've got that character.
But in the city, I was talking to a friend of mine. Like in the city at the open mics, like a lot of times they go there. You're the only girl. There's like 13. It's a
right.
tough situation. So
Yeah.
I think it's good for that to bring an enlightenment to stop saying dumb shit when you have to bring a girl on like in the comedy industry.
Yeah.
Like I've never said I've emceed a lot. I've never brought a girl up. But like this next comedian's a woman.
Yeah.
Why the fuck would you say that? Or mention if they're attractive, be like, and she's a real cutie. Like, what are you bringing? Don't mention that. Because guys will bring me up. Guys will bring me up. And I don't dress. I dress casually on stage. I don't wear like tight shirts, but I'm in okay shape. In the comedy world, I'm Schwarzenegger. In the comedy world, it's like the leopard with the most fingers. Like it's like not,
Yeah.
And I've had comics bring you up, like the next man, he's buff and he's got some pecs, and I'm like, shut up! Like, why are you bringing me up like that?
Fucking weird. Yeah.
Yeah, I got to go up there now, and I'm getting. There's a perception of me.
Right.
Yeah.
People, they're kind of labeling you. It's like people can fucking tell.
Funny guys aren't in good shape. You're supposed to be.
Right, like Tom Dillon. Who's that, right?
Tim Dillon?
Tim Dillon?
Tim Dillon is funny.
He's pretty
He
funny.
just shot a funny bit for out in the Hamptons. He did Hamptons version of Antifa. He did a training video for Antifa in the Hamptons, and it's very funny. Tim's
he was just on Rogan. He's a funny. He's into kind of politics and all that shit. But
very smart Tim. I started with Tim.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we came up together. We used to do. It was Wild Child Tattoo Parlor in Belmore, on Sunrise Highway.
Is that right over by the train station?
Yeah, past it. It's
Okay.
called Wild Child Tattoo Parlor, and they had a cafe in the front of the tattoo parlor.
Okay.
And we used to do an open mic there. And Tim Dillon used to host it, and Dennis Rooney and some other really funny comics took turns hosting it. But that was like 10, 11 years ago. We used to go there, and if you bombed, you just like tell a joke and it didn't work. You just hear like you could hear like the needle, like somebody was getting tattooed.
That's funny.
And that was to this day one of the best mics ever on Long Island.
Wait, what made it so great?
It was just people. It was
everything?
the atmosphere was intimate. It was tight. We had good hosts. I mean, Rooney's a really good comic. Tim Dillon was always Tim was funny out of the gate. Like he's a child actor.
Dennis Rooney.
Tim Dillon.
Oh, really?
He was a child actor. Yeah. He actually was like I think he was like second runner up to get the role in Home Alone, which I never knew.
Oh shit.
I think that's true. I don't know, but he did commercial work and shit like that. He was like a legit child actor, so he's been comfortable in front of a camera. But he's very into his conspiracy theories, and his other shit. He's very smart, and he's made a niche with lucky for him, he's a podcaster.
Right.
He does this, and this is the wave right now because live stand-up, like you can reach a lot of people doing something like this and get a core audience. And look at the guys who are, you got Legion of Skanks, you got Fighter and the Kid, you got Rogan, Mark Maron.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a podcast now.
Did you see that thing with Big J Okerson or whatever? We got like pulled off stage.
Yeah, that's at Soul Joe's Comedy Club in
They said
Pennsylvania.
it was a stunt, though. I don't know.
No, it was not a stunt.
It wasn't a stunt.
No, absolutely not. I know the owner of the club.
Oh, okay.
No, it was.
So he pissed off some dude whose girlfriend.
No, it's just some whack. They were in the audience. They were being belligerent all night, drunk and heckling. And Joel went to Jay and said, "You want me to get him out of here? He's headlining. He's going up next." If you know Jay Okerson, he does a lot of crowd work. He's not going to be intimidated. He's like, no, I'll make it part of my act. Like, don't worry. Like, you don't have to throw him out. I'll deal with him.
Dirty guy.
Yeah, but he's a crowd work guy, too. That's his strength. He went up there, and they just were fucking drunk. And remember, I told you about the drunks you're not going to read. It got to the point where it was a problem. And at the end of the show, they had to throw him out. And I guess they were with another couple or something when they were leaving. I wasn't there. I don't know if Jay said something to him on the way out, but the guy kind of stormed the stage. It's an outdoor makeshift venue. So the stage is pretty high, I think. And he grabbed Jay's ankles and did an ankle pick and pulled him out.
Yeah, he just pulls if it's like
they call it it's like an ankle pick.
Yeah.
So he pulled his feet out from under him.
Hard.
He's a big dude.
Yeah.
And then Louis J. Gomez came out and turned into a whole Donnybrook out there.
Yeah, they beat the shit out of that guy, supposedly.
Yeah, so I think they have security now.
Wasn't it the guy that Shane Gillis or whatever? Then they made a video. The guy that was supposed to be on SNL.
Yeah, I know
him with two other guys saying that they, maybe it was just a joke, obviously, but that this was and there was going to be more of these attacks or something like that.
I think it was a joke. I think it's a joke.
But
Shane's really funny, and that's another example. If you know, Shane Gillis is a comedian. I've only met him once. We worked together. He opened for Michael Rappaport, the actor Michael Rappaport.
Yeah.
I was at Governor's with him. They needed me to host last minute. They had nobody there to do anything. So they're like, "You can go host." I'm like, "Yeah, I love Michael Rappaport." So I went in the back, and Shane was the middle act, and I watched him. He had some really funny Trump shit, really funny, original. I don't.
Wait, how long ago was this? Obviously after Trump was elected, but
year and a half ago, fairly recent. Right before the SNL shit happened. So I met Shane. We hit it off. Really good guy. Very funny stand-up. I was really impressed. I sat in the room and watched his stand-up, and it's very rarely, because I see so much stand-up, and I'm like, this fucking dude's really funny. Right. I'm get original shit about Trump. Went in the back. Me and him hit it off. I've never seen him since. We're not friends, but 2 weeks later, it was shortly after that, I heard he got SNL. And I was like, that's fucking great. He was a good dude. He's funny. I'm like, good for him. And about an hour after that, he lost SNL. And what it was, he did a podcast a decade ago.
And somebody kicked up some dirt on him.
It wasn't even
about
dirt.
Asians.
He was talking about Chinatown.
Yeah.
And in conversation, he said something about there's a lot of chinks. He used the word chink. and it came off as a derogatory term, and it got to, some guy wrote it. It's a witch hunt because the guy who wrote the blog, I go, this was a podcast like I have a podcast. There's 9 people who listen to it.
Yeah.
This is 10 years ago. Somebody had to
do some research.
Somebody had to be looking for this.
Right.
And it's not a big, and then the guy wrote an article and he was like, and he also said, he said fag, and I'm like, these aren't even in context now. They're just throwing words, he said.
Yeah.
And Lorne Michaels pulled him from the show.
Well, I think it was the double whammy of two. If they had the first Asian coming on too, right onto the.
Yeah, and he's funny. He's funny, that kid.
And Lorne Michaels is not he doesn't usually back down. It's just whatever
he does now.
I know. Ever since, if you want to say ever since Trump or whatever, this total shift. But
I hate that. I hate that pandering though.
But to social media, to that point, obviously, I hate it. I think it's essentially the root of almost all. But do you get rid of it completely? Like how do you see the
some things are valid. If you do something horrible, you got to get fired.
But that's part of the problem is where do you draw that line? You see the Zuckerbergs and people that now they're trying to regulate everything, but they're so screwed up in the way that they're doing. They're censoring some people and not censoring others. So
look, if I get Saturday Night Live and then a video surfaces me dropping the N-word at some black guy 15 times, I should be fired.
Yeah.
But there's some guys it doesn't apply to. Who's the guy from Seinfeld? Kramer. Like
but his career was already over.
All right, but
you know what I mean. When that happened, Seinfeld was off the air. Yeah. There's nothing to pull him. He hasn't really worked since.
People can't have a bad moment. You know what I mean?
That's that's a rough moment. I understand this permanent condemn. That was a really rough moment. I don't know what that was about.
The Kramer you're talking about.
The Kramer incident was a very weird. I don't know if he thought it was being
a little off.
I don't know if he is. I know people who worked with him.
Yeah.
I don't. I think he. I
he
don't know
was
if he
getting
thought it was funny. I
heckled,
thought
right?
He was getting heckled. He kind of lost his shit. But the problem is nowadays everybody's got a phone.
Right.
Yeah.
There's no moments that just like, hey, you hear what happened at the club. Now it's just.
But it's more than that. Like you said, they had a
But that's
look
a
for
hard
Shane
one to
Gillis
defend.
and go back.
Yeah. Michael Richards is a hard one to defend.
I mean, there are some instances where people do bounce back. I mean, you look at Don Imus. I mean, he said some pretty rough stuff. I mean,
Don Imus, that was brutal when he said it was the nappy-headed comment.
Hose.
I mean, but he wound up bouncing back. I mean, he was back on the radio. I mean,
usually when you have an audience already, but it's easier. But for the guys, remember there was a few baseball players who was Sonny Gray on the Yankees, who was the closer from Milwaukee. They went back until like they're 17, and they went and it's like we know that's. But how do we convince those other people?
Context makes a big difference. Context is everything.
Sure.
My high school yearbook, I don't give a fuck. I could care less if somebody found it. I'm not going to apologize for it. Dr. J was my favorite athlete growing up.
Yeah.
A huge Dr. J fan. Basketball, 76er fan. I'm a 76er fan to this day because of Dr. J. My senior year of high school, I went to my high school dance as Dr. J. Afro, completely in black, 6 in uniform. My favorite player. It was a sign of respect. I wanted to be Dr. J.
Right.
I think it's in the yearbook.
No one said anything. No one was offended.
We had I was in black. I was all in black. My whole body. I was covered in black. I didn't think there was no racist thing. I'm Dr. J. Well, if I wasn't, people are like, who are you?
Right.
I'm white Dr. J.
I'm the one that didn't make it to the NBA.
I'm the guy from Halloween Resurrection who did this without blackface.
So wait, are you worried about that?
No. I wouldn't be telling you right now. I wouldn't be bringing attention to the fact that it's in the 1985 Bethpage High School yearbook.
They'd find it anyway.
I don't give a shit.
I mean?
Because I know there was nothing racist behind it. It was a sign of respect to my favorite athlete.
Yeah.
That's all it was.
Okay.
But I wanted to look like him. By the way, my friend went as Moses Malone, and he's a school principal today, so he has way more to lose than me. He's a principal of a school, and he was Moses Malone.
Well, he'd be fired in 2 freaking,
But it's absurd to me. And then I have me trick-or-treating. I went as Al Jolson when I was like 8.
All right, maybe you just have a problem.
Yeah, I just
it just started young.
It just started. I got a long history.
All right.
But here's, again, that falls more on my parents because I was 8 and I just knew Al Jolson was a big movie star and I grew up I was a film major in school. I love film. I'm obsessed with film noir. I do Hitchcock films. Every old, like on the waterfront. I'm like a huge film buff. And not a lot of 12-year-olds are like into James
Could have been a contender.
Yeah, I'm not into. Not a lot of 12-year-olds love James Cagney's films. You know what I mean? I was into that. So Al Jolson was a huge entertainer and he sang and he did the blackface with white. I didn't even know what it meant.
Yeah.
It's like I'm going to be Al Jolson. And I went door to door in my little white neighborhood in Bethpage. Everybody's like, look. And they gave me candy. Nobody gave a shit, including my folks. I put it on Facebook like 3 years ago as a joke. I found the picture. I was like 8, and I posted it on Facebook.
Oh, shit.
And I said, I go, look at the 70s. Like, you could just, like, people were so racist, nobody knew. I was making fun of the fact that I was able to do this in the 70s.
Yeah.
I know I have no bad intent.
And
I had
people are
nothing.
coming at you for
Nobody came at me.
Okay.
Some friends from high school wrote me privately and were like, hey, John, you may want to take that down. And I was like, why? I didn't even get it.
Right.
I was like, why am I going to take it down? I'm making fun of the fact that I dressed as Al Jolson. I know it was wrong. I go, I was 8. It was 1975.
Yeah.
I go, what am I? It would have, if I was famous, done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I feel bad for, like, you know who, she's on Dancing with the Stars, really good-looking blonde. She's got a brother who dances too. Huff or something.
Oh, yeah. Sure. What happened to her?
She went as Orange is the New Black on Halloween. The cast, her and like 6 friends. But she went as Crazy Eyes, who's got like the, I don't know what you call them, like the cornrow kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that. Like the white ribbons in the hair. Like,
Wait, she went as a white chick? Or?
she's white. She went as...
I know she's white.
No, she went as a black girl. She went as Crazy Eyes, who's black. And she did it all. She wore the orange jumpsuit. She was black. She had the hair done.
Okay.
And all her friends went as different characters from Orange is the New Black. And she loves the show. And she goes, that's my favorite character.
Yeah.
She's not thinking anything. Within an hour of that hitting it, she put it on her Instagram. That shows you she's not hiding. She's like, look at us. We're at a Halloween party in Hollywood.
Yeah.
She was destroyed.
Oh,
like the backlash. She was like, what the fuck is happening? PR people, her management had to get involved. The next day, she's 25 at the time. She's on a press tour. She's like, I'm very sorry for my insensitive. And you should see in her face this look of, I don't know what the fuck I'm sorry for, but apparently it's been told I will never work again if I don't repeat these words.
Yeah.
And she had to apologize. But I'm like, guys, leave her. She didn't do anything. Stop it. If you're really, it's a fake outrage. You're not really outraged by this.
That's the thing. It's
you're
bullshit.
not outraged. Nobody thinks that is. If you think what she's doing is racist, your mind was made up. You just don't. It's just what you want to hear.
You have an agenda.
You have an agenda. Yeah. She did nothing, and they want her. They want her not just an apology. They want her done.
Yeah.
Just taken out.
Forever.
Just not
Louis.
on anything.
That's the cancel culture. That's the whole problem with it.
If you saw what Louis C.K. went through for his whack-off stuff.
Well, yeah, pulling your dick out.
Well, he never pulled his dick out. No,
Were there 2 girls in the whole... Oh. You asked his dick first? Or
it would be like you looking over and I'm just doing this podcast and my dick's out.
Stroking it.
But it would be different. I was like, Rob, Josh, would you guys be okay if I took my dick out? I do it during podcasts sometimes. And you were like, yeah, whatever. Like, no, don't do that.
Yeah. No.
So I'm not defending what Louis did. It's creepy fucking behavior. It's a little weird.
Yeah.
But he came out, apologized, owned it. It was 12 years ago. People don't understand that also. This wasn't like an ongoing, it was a pattern he had. And then he kind of checked himself and was like, there's something wrong with me.
Yeah.
And he didn't do it for like 12 years, but this circulated. And when they came at him, I mean, he lost, you can't put a monetary thing on it. Right. He lost like $40 million.
Sure.
Probably.
But it's destroyed his reputation, his career. But they, even a year and a half later, tried to, like, it's not long enough. I go, well, tell us what do you want to happen to him?
Yeah. Like, define like exactly what
he should
would be
never
some
have
redemption.
People were protesting governors. They were like, he shouldn't have a platform. I go, well, why not? One, he didn't break a law. He did nothing illegal. There's no criminal charges here. There's nothing illegal. It's morally creepy. And these people didn't work for him. You can say it's he owned it as harassment because he understands that he's looked at in a position of power.
Yeah.
Right.
And again, I'm not defending what Louis did. It's creepy behavior, and I understand the backlash. Like I'm not stupid, but I'm like, at what point can you move on from it? Is it never?
That's one of those things. It's like
people murder people and get out of jail,
and they're given forgiveness.
They're given forgiveness. Like what? So he's like, I've been on this. I've seen at least. I'm not exaggerating. I'm going to guesstimate a ballpark range. I've seen at least 8 to 12 dicks on the subway in my life. At least 8 to 12 of guys just being like, like on a newspaper.
And they just happened to be a freaking homeless guy that was crazy, and Louis happened to be somebody with an audience. And
it's not pleasant. And I thought about it.
Never pleasant.
Yeah, but I thought about it.
Seeing your own dick is not pleasant.
I can tell you, I never thought about it 12 years later.
God, remember that cock in 1980?
It's not like I get on the D train and I'm like my chest is getting tight. I'm like, oh,
not again. I will never forget.
Every time somebody snaps the New York Times, I'm like, oh.
Get a little flutter, a little nervous.
I could still remember the headlines.
But when this happened to Louis, everybody bailed on the guy. I mean, you couldn't defend it, because if you defend it, you're part of the problem. And again, it's not defending. Like when I'm saying I'm not defending it, I'm not picking my words carefully because I'm tired of having to pick my words carefully. Right. I'm tired of being like, well, how do I say without looking like I'm supporting sexual harassment? I'm not. I'm just trying to say, like, yeah, he fucked up. He owned it. It was 12 years ago. He paid financially. his family, he has children. They know what it is.
Well, that's always the worst part.
You know, what has this guy been put through? At what point? And the bottom line is he's a comedy genius.
Yeah.
Louis C.K., love me. He's a phenomenal comic. He's necessary in comedy. He's really top shelf, like one of the GOATs. It's like him, Chappelle, Burr. There are guys that are just accept, because it's 30 years to make a Louis C.K.
Right.
People think you become a great comic in like 10 years. That doesn't exist.
Right.
There's good comics in 10 years.
Right.
Those guys are all 30-year. Brian Regan, Carlin, guys who were around forever. You know, the Eddie Murphys are freaking outliers. He was like 23. He was doing Delirious.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, doing it. Then he did Raw. It was just kind of like, and it holds up. If you watch the Eddie Murphy ones today, they hold up okay.
But that's the sad part is these guys took so long to
30
ascend,
years.
and then it takes just a moment to
bring 'em
drop.
down.
Again, I mean, I can't defend what Louis C.K. did. That's an act is different from
I also don't know
some
all the.
words.
I also don't know the
we
details.
weren't there in the room. I don't know what his dick looks
It wasn't like there was criminal charges
Right.
and we're going to release this stuff. Like,
Well,
I
that's the
don't know
thing
what
is
the
it
fuck
came out like
happens.
10 years later, right? And
We don't know
why. Was it to try to hurt him? Was it to try to, you know what I mean?
Well,
It
they
just-
might have felt disgusted by it. They might have been like,
Clearly not enough at the time, though,
And I get it's not easy to come forward. Because
Right,
he's
I'm
a
not saying you're going to
powerful
run
guy.
to the police or you're going to, you know what I mean?
But it is, when you're in a business, like say I work with Louis. I've been hit on by 2 male comics.
At the same time?
What's that?
At the same time?
Yeah. And you know what? Sad thing is, if either one of them had a sitcom, I'd have a whole different story right now. But they were like, one of them was very successful, like very successful.
Okay.
In his day, more so than now, but still has a good career, and clearly hit on me. Wasn't no misinterpreting it. And I didn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
I don't care. I didn't go home and cry and eat Haagen-Dazs. Like I didn't care.
Right.
But if I was offended, if he was physically touched me or I felt like threatened in any way, I understand not coming forward. It's not easy to come forward.
Yeah.
Because at the time, like if I say something, my career's done.
Yeah.
I'm a fucking albatross. Nobody's going to come near me. Like, so I get it. It's not that easy to come forward. And nobody's going to believe you. And,
Well, it's also different. A guy, you don't want to
but
talk
10
about a
years
guy
later,
hitting on you.
Terry Crews went through it. If you
What?
watch the story from Terry Crews?
Yeah. Would someone hit on
NFL
him?
player.
or
No, a guy grabbed
what?
his dick at a party, huge injury executive, and Terry Crews wanted to punch him in the face. And he goes, I
didn't?
knew it. He knew as a black guy, because I punched this. He goes, it's not going to go good for me.
Oh, man.
But he
You got-
felt sexually harassed, and he did come out and out the guy.
But at the time, he had to just kind of swallow it and
And the
take
thing
it.
of Terry Crews
you
is
gotta punch that guy in the
that?
face. you don't
swallow
come
it
out later.
and,
somebody
swallow it
grab
and
my
take
dick
it is a weird choice of words.
Yeah. He just had to stand there and take it.
But you look at Terry Crews,
Yeah.
was he 260
The guy's-
pounds?
the guy's
Just
huge,
jacked.
bro. Yeah.
But, so it happens. I get it. I can't. The thing is, I know enough not to have an opinion when you don't have the information. I don't know the information. Like, people are like, what do you think about Brian Callen? I go, I don't know Brian Callen. I know this girl. I have no idea.
Right.
I know that I'm not going to convict the dude unless I have some evidence. That I know. But I'm not saying he didn't do it.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. No, the blanket believe all anything. It's just, but they have an agenda. I mean, they know what they're doing. There's
If
a
somebody
purpose to
accused
it.
me of something, I would at least want the benefit of the doubt.
I would think so. And that's where we used to be 5 years ago.
I'll have
10
my day
years
in
ago.
court, but
Right. Show me some freaking evidence. But unfortunately, it's a totally different world.
Well, that's just the hypersensitivity that we live with nowadays. I mean,
Yeah, but
that's
how do you fix it? How do you get it back? I mean,
It's-
certainly social media is part of the problem.
Well, social media is
know?
one thing, but I mean, it's really just getting to a point where people realize that, like, you have to understand that there is a context to things like history and comedy and entertainment, that you have to understand that not everything is there to try to trigger you and offend you, and the world just can't cater to everything
there's
about
also
you.
there's a time when you're complaining about things for 20 years ago. The time is different. You can't yell at somebody for doing what was socially completely acceptable at that time.
Yeah.
You're going to call somebody a racist for doing something that at the time, I'm like, that's what everybody was doing. It wasn't racist at the I've seen Saturday Night Live sketches 100 times worse than what, like literally 100 times worse than what Jimmy Fallon did. Season 1, watch the job interview between Richard Pryor and Chevy Chase. It's season 1 where they drop the N-word.
They actually just drop it straight on, like,
No,
on cable TV? Or?
the sketches, it's on TV. It's a job interview with Chevy Chase is interviewing Richard Pryor for a janitorial job. And they do word association. And Chevy Chase goes, I say a word, you tell me what pops into your head. He goes, white. He goes, black. And then the next one was, he's like, spear chucker. And Richard Pryor's like kind of as the face, like, what? And he's like, honky. And then he says another one, and he goes, honky, honky. And then he says the N-word.
This was on TV?
Yeah, he says, and then Chevy Chase goes, he says the N-word, and Richard Pryor goes, dead honky. That's the whole sketch.
Yeah.
And then he goes, congratulations, you're the highest paid janitor in North America. And he gives him the job. Like, that's the sketch. And it's funny, and it holds up, but I'm like, but he literally says the N-word in 1975?
You can get away with it then, but you would literally be like...
Watch the Asian parodies, too. They're the best. Because the Asian parodies are like with the fake buck teeth
they're
and the
so
black horn rim
overt.
glasses. They're always like, hello, welcome to our gamer show. And I'm like, you fired Shane Gillis?
Yeah, over that. I know, and that's the double standard. It's
They all have
sick.
like the buck teeth, like Charlie Chan. With the, and I'm like, fuck,
It's
is that
so
okay?
overt. Yeah, I remember the Samurai Hotel one is the one
That's
that
the
sticks
70s.
out. Yeah.
But it, like...
Well, they were
where
still
do you
using
start-
Negro at the time. You know what I mean? That was the way you described black people. So it wasn't like a leap to go to the. You know what I mean?
Did they say Negro in the 70s?
I think it was kind of they were phasing it out towards then, but
Phasing
you
it
know,
out.
well, you know, it was huge in the 50s and 60s. You know,
I still say retard a lot. I'm not supposed to say that.
That's one of
I
those
say
things
that.
that really triggers people nowadays,
Yeah,
too.
it does, but I like the word.
women in particular.
Well, I've been saying it
Forever.
For your
52,
whole
so I've
life.
probably saying it since I was, for like 45 years, it's been a huge part of my vocabulary.
Right. Me, retard, and gay. Like everything's gay, bro. That's gay, bro.
I used to
You know
say that
that's
a
gay.
lot, and I don't.
Not as much.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
That one,
we're
I don't know
adults
why.
a little bit, but you still drop a lot of retards in there. You know, like yo, that's retarded.
Oh, no, a lot.
A lot.
A lot. I'm good for like 7 to 9 retards a day.
So you wear blackface and you drop a lot of retards. All
Doesn't
right.
10 count? Like, I have there's only 10.
Oh shit.
Do we just have a...
Yeah. It says,
Wow, I guess I shouldn't have
What's
said that. That was
No.
a sign.
Yeah.
It's like, here's a warning.
Wait. So what context do you use retard? Like what would?
Oh, when people are being really stupid.
Just-
I call them
okay,
retarded.
okay,
Like, I'm saying it for what it means.
Right.
I'm not going to lie. I mean,
Right.
I do say it.
It's not like a double.
You're not
entendre,
trying
like
to
a hidden
offend
meaning.
somebody. It's just
No, he is. He
somebody's
is. I
acting.
think.
I did a joke and I used the word. No, I'm not trying to offend anybody.
No.
It's just a word that...
It's just you're describing someone's action.
Because I don't like that they changed the word because retarded literally means delayed.
Yeah.
That's what it means. And it was the medical terminology to describe
Right,
somebody
right.
who was mentally disabled. You used to
Right.
call them retarded.
Or idiot was a big one. You know, you used
But
to call someone.
retarded became because people started throwing it around or making, and they're saying it in a derogatory way. They're like, we'll call them mentally challenged. Louis has a great bit about that.
Well, I think that's also
About
when
the word retarded. It's
look that one up.
it's great. It's new. It's like from like after he came back, after all the stuff, he did this bit about, because he grew up in Boston.
Yeah.
And his teachers would just be like, this is James. He's a new student. He's retarded. Don't make fun of retards. Like, that's the way they bring him in the class.
That's a good Boston accent.
And he does it. It was great. It was such a funny. And then he said, you got to be mentally. He goes, he got used to be calling retarded the kid.
Yeah.
And they're like, you're not retarded anymore. He's like, yes, I am. And they're like, no, you're not retarded. You're mentally challenged. He goes, fuck, that sounds way worse. Such a good bit.
That's funny.
But I understand people who teach in the industry, that's a very offensive word. I go, since when? It was never offensive. When did it become, it was what it was called, mental retardation.
Right. Right. It's how you use it. I mean, to an
you
extent.
know, it's almost like you were just saying, like, it's some things are products of the times where, you know, you look at Major League Baseball, they changed the disabled list to the injured list. In 1980, I don't think anybody would have cared, but in the year 2019,
How many people care now?
No.
enough
Anything
that
with a
they
bad
just didn't want to deal with the
connotation,
corporate headache.
2 people who wrote a blog. Like, do people really care? But were people really upset that it was called the disabled list? Like, were people really?
I don't know, but I think from their standpoint, it was like, if they take us
It's
to
an
court,
easy
it's not
fix.
worth
It's
it.
not worth that.
That's
Just
what
change
is.
it.
Right, but that's
Yeah.
the unfortunate, theory now
The
between these
problem
old
is
corporations.
when the bar starts to move like that. Like, I love fucking Goya Beans. Like, they came after. This is how the cans.
Got some
Goya Beans
balls.
was like, yo, you know, God bless Donald Trump,
Yeah.
and they were like, yo, don't buy their products. He's a Trump supporter. I'm like, that's weird. You're gonna boycott a company based on his political choice.
Well, you saw the guy that made Hamilton, Louis Miranda, whatever. They wanted to cancel Hamilton.
Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Yeah. And then the Goya thing happens, and he's like, cancel Goya. It's like, dude,
Why
do
did
you
they
not
want to
see?
cancel Hamilton?
Because it promoting white slave owners. You know, it's the story.
Hamilton
about,
wasn't a slave owner.
Well, in general, you got George
I did my
Washington. You
research.
got,
Yeah.
you know, it's focused on Hamilton, but they don't like the fact that they're making this parallel between a white guy coming from poor backgrounds to become successful, and of course he's George.
So you
Washington
can't have any history?
That's the way it's going.
They're all
That is the
slave
way it's
owners.
Right, but that's why they're
understand.
tearing down all their statues.
You understand? Everybody was a slave owner.
Essentially, yeah. I mean, no, they don't want any history. I mean, that's the way I look at. I mean, they're pretty overt about. They're not really hiding that. You know, I mean, that's why they're trying to tear down the statues, burn the institutions. You know, they're like fucking wipe it all out. All white people, white history, white culture. Because you
Who do you
destroy
put up
that, you
statues
destroy
of? Who do you
people.
replace the statues with?
Well,
you don't.
Well, what do you mean? You put up the old ones. No, you need statues. You need.
I don't think anybody needs statues.
No, you need the Confederate statues.
To hold up your books. What do you do in case your books don't fall over?
No.
You need statues for.
No, don't you? Especially as men, don't you need aspirational characters? Don't you need people to look up to? Don't you need men who did great things in order to teach?
I like them.
Right, but
here's the problem.
You need them. You need history.
Are you really gonna fuck with Mount Rushmore? That looks like a lot. That looks like a lot of work.
Even to put Trump on there, I wouldn't. Just
Trump on Mount Rushmore.
I would love it, but
and it would say Trump, and it would just say Trump across the top, like a big gold INC dot. Trump. That's great.
That's funny.
I'm a Trump.
They apparently talked to South Dakota too about supposedly getting Trump's face on there. I don't know.
No, that's never gonna happen.
It was Kristi Noem presented him with like a mock-up of Mount Rushmore with 5 faces on it.
To actually ask. Be like,
there's a Rocky statue. There's a Sylvester Stallone statue in Philly.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure they'll tear that down. Yeah,
I love when they want to tear down like make-believe people now.
Someone made a joke about that Philadelphia's great claim is a fictional. Oh, is that what?
Yeah, he goes Joe Frazier came out of Philadelphia. You got a statue of a white guy, fake white boxer.
Something, I think John Meacham just made the best point on it, where he's like, did they try to make it a more perfect union? Could you make the argument yes, and could you make the argument no? And I think that's really where it stands in terms of, if you want to take down Confederate statues, I'm fine with that. But if you want to rename Woodrow Wilson High School, it's like, okay, you've just crossed the line on me.
They labeled Woodrow Wilson for the Time magazine last week as the worst president in a crisis ever.
Because he had a joke about
Spanish flu.
It wasn't Woodrow Wilson. My joke was about, I went to John F. Kennedy Middle School. There's so many John F. Kennedy schools.
Yeah.
I'm like, why did Kennedy? He really got the bulk share of the schools.
Yeah. Because it's a safe choice. He was only in there.
You never heard anybody. Where do you go to school? I go to Taft. Like nobody goes to Howard Taft Middle School.
Over Cleveland High.
Cleveland High.
There's a couple in Queens. Is that John Bound High School? People are like, who the fuck is John Bound?
It's like, I guess all you have to do is get assassinated in an office.
Kennedy
small price to pay.
They must have. Yeah, Kennedy was a big. What is John F. Kennedy? There's like 13 of them just in Nassau County.
Because obviously, there was a lot of mourning and like they felt,
no Ted Kennedy schools, which is weird. None.
Are there none really? There might. You sure? All right.
I've never.
They love Ted Kennedy in the Democratic Party.
And his giant head.
He was a creep.
This is the most I've ever talked about politics, by the way.
Well, there's no getting away from it on this podcast.
I feel like you're suppressing it all. I feel like
No, I do because
somewhat you have to
because I'm not. I also know I'm not educated enough to rant that loud. I do try to watch a lot of stuff.
Right.
But I know that everything I watch, I'm watching Jordan Peterson. I watch a lot of Ben Shapiro. I watch Louder for Crowder. He makes me laugh. But those are the people I'm watching. So I'm hearing a very particular point of view. The problem is every time I turn on somebody who's the spokesperson for the left, I disagree with them wholeheartedly very quickly. So I don't really give them a shot. Like I listen to them try to defend and she's a bad example. Like, listen, that AOC, she's literally a fucking moron.
We've had those discussions.
Like, if I ran a Target, if I worked in retail and ran a Target, I wouldn't hire her to be a cashier.
She is...
Like, I think she's an idiot.
Very much a product of, her district. I mean, she's able to have those types of points of views, and she doesn't have to worry that she'll ever be...
she's mentally ill.
I can't believe what she actually did in terms of driving Amazon out of Long Island City. Like, that was one thing that Cuomo really, really did that was, like, going to benefit the area. And her argument was, well, it's going to drive up real estate prices. That's good for the area. I mean, that's a very good thing.
And it becomes a very...
Right. Well, that's the problem. She doesn't... What the hell does she know about economic policy, She was a fucking bartender, right? Or something like that? She was a bartender for like...
She was a bartender, I mean...
I'm not nothing against bartenders.
I wish I had a bartending job right now.
That's funny, but yeah, it's people who don't, and it makes sense. I mean, you don't want to suppress it, but you also don't want to add to. You see the other side as being too loud and
when
vocal.
I talk very passionately about something, like I'll have full debate with people on the topic of comedy,
right?
Because I've been doing it for 12 years. It's my whole life. I did it 7 nights a week.
Right. That's your craft.
And I really feel pretty confident in what the things I'm saying. Like, and I can back them up.
Yeah.
Like, you're probably not going to win it. It must be great. It must be what Ben Shapiro feels like when he's having a political debate. Like, come at me.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's got to be like when Tyson was in his prime.
Yeah.
Like, they bring people, he's like, I'm going to fuck you up. Like, you don't have a shot. Like, I feel that way if I'm going to debate somebody on the topic of comedy, there's very little I haven't experienced. I'm only 12 years in. Now, when it starts talking about TV and movies, I've never done that. Yeah. So that's when I go, okay, out of my area now. You've done that. I haven't. I haven't been on 3 Tonight shows, so I can't comment on what that experience is like. But being a club comic in that world and coming up from an MC to a middle to a headliner, I'll talk to anybody about comedy.
Yeah.
And feel, but I don't feel, I'm not that confident in my political viewpoints. I just, and I can't articulate them as well as I'd like to. So sometimes you have this viewpoint and you just,
well, self-awareness is a very
you
good
just start
character
tripping
trait
over
to
your
have.
tongue.
I mean,
Yeah, well, I think that's the smart thing. I think that's part of the problem is people who, you know, they're just shouting from rooftops for whatever reason, you know, because they're.
But when it comes to the idea of censorship, I am a big.
Right.
Yeah, that's something I'm passionate. I'm not that. I'm very passionate about that. I don't care if I like what you say. Well, I don't have to like it.
Well, that's the thing nowadays. I mean, people are actually unfriending each other and ending, you know, entire friendships based off the fact that
I hide
they see
feeds.
things that
I don't unfriend them, but I hide their feeds.
You know something? That's a perfectly fine thing to do.
Because I don't want to be irritated.
Yeah, I've told people you can just keep scrolling. Like, you can just keep scrolling. But
there's actually an app that you could, it cleans your feed.
So you only kind of just
you see what the things you want to see. Somebody told me
that doesn't surprise me.
I had got off Facebook for a year. I went back on during the pandemic because I needed to be able to post some content because I can't perform.
Okay.
But I was off for a full year. And then I went back on and I'm like, I've been on a day. And I'm so fucking aggravated. I'm like irritated. I find myself getting mad at people.
Yeah.
And my friend Joe is just kind of like, no, there's this app I use and it basically just cleans you. You'll see,
get rid of your porn history
content.
Too?
What's that?
You get rid of your porn history too?
I'm not ashamed of my porn history. I'm really not.
Yeah, I might be a little ashamed of it.
Like, I didn't even know what the cloud was until I was like 51. And then I got a new phone and the guy like backed up my phone and he was checking if everything and he opened it up.
It's like, shit, bro.
Fucking picture of my dick on the screen. And I'm like, oh, give me my phone.
I feel like that happens to a lot of guys. Yeah. Like I'll never hand over my computer to like the Geek Squad at Best Buy. I'm like, no.
Yeah, I'll just buy a new one.
My brother's wife
I don't know where that virus came from.
Is the one who told me about the cloud, and I went to a deli and I like figured out how to open up the cloud.
Yeah.
And I just, when I was in the deli, opened up and I was like, it was just fucking nude pictures and fucking all kinds of dirty shit. It was like, I meant to really.
Two girls, one cup, or whatever.
Wow, it was just fucking. So I opened it up and I'm like, oh. But then like September of like 1 year, there was just like 30. It was me. It was like dick pics. It was like fucking 25 of them,
just in a row.
And I'm like, what was going on in September?
You're like Jonah Hill in Superbad. He's just drawing all those giant veiny dicks.
So
all
I
over
was
the
like,
place.
I had to like clean my whole.
That's funny. Shit.
Good
all right, man. Well, I hate to wrap this up, but 2 hours is up.
It has been fun, fellas.
Yeah, man. It
always close on a dick pic. Always close on a dick pic. That's the way you do it.
There's nowhere but down. So. All right, man. It was a pleasure having you in. I really appreciate it. Man.
This was fun. I appreciate it. I have my first Zoom show tonight.
Nice.
No, it's not. It's really not. I'm doing it. Somebody asked me to do it. It's a favor.
Okay.
But it's comedy on Zoom is brutal. I'm dreading it. But
well, good luck with that, man. And
gotta do what you gotta do.
Too. I hope you things pick up. So
yeah, they will.
Yeah, of course. All right, man. Well, this is Rob, Josh, and our special